Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brighton Area Schools Board of Education meeting. Tonight, we are going to continue with the tradition that we started our last meeting, where we will be inviting students to come to the front and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I understand that this evening we have some friends from Horning Elementary that are going to undertake that task for us. So I welcome. Thank you very much for leading us in that very important aspect of our meeting this evening. All right, that moves us to the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion? Moved by Mr. Stahl, support by Ms. Tierney. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to the superintendent report. Dr. Outlaw.
All right. I'm going to turn us over right away. We've got 4 things on our agenda for the superintendent report. We're going to start off with school showcase, which is something that we started last month. We had Hawkins here last month. We're going to have Horning is going to do a presentation for us tonight. We're also going to have a report from BARC, which is a growing youth athletics program. They're going to talk a little bit about their growth over the past few years. We're going to have a shining star this evening from our outstanding Bridge Alternative High School, and then we're going to have a chance to talk about future investment, some capital improvement plan that we'll have a little discussion as a board, so with the board. So with that, I would like to invite Horning forward. The floor is yours.
All right. Welcome, everyone. I appreciate you being here tonight. Good evening, school board members. I know we have some superintendents that are here this evening, Brighton families, and Horning staff. I'm Jack Yates. I'm the proud principal of Horning Elementary School, and Brighton Area Schools employee for over 46 years now. Okay, enough with reminiscing. This evening it's about the great things that are happening at our school. At Horning, we're always looking towards the future. Academically, Horning students continue to be very successful in all areas of the curriculum. Many thanks to our devoted staff who work so hard every day to support our children both academically and emotionally. During our huddle session, we emphasize building a sense of community and family in order to foster positive school relationships. And going on to, we actually formed some partnerships with Brighton Ford, who helped out with the Toys for Tots campaign, and along what we've done with things where the American Heart Association, where over the past 3 years, we've raised over $30,000. Our Horning community has also earned Evergreen School status, was from the state of Michigan for its efforts in conserving and recycling, quite an extraordinary feat. In addition, our PTO is amazing. I was just told this morning that our silent auction and first ever readathon has now raised close to $18,000. Our PTO has continued to be a blessing with incredible parents always supporting our kids. Lastly, while we are showcasing our school this evening, I'd like to introduce some very special Horning teachers, Clee Walker, Caitlin Lipinski, and Lisa Kokab. They have been instrumental with creating some phenomenal programs, and you'll see that tonight. Without further ado,
Come on up, guys. You can come up. Just stand right here.
Hi, my name's Caitlin Lipinski.
I'm Clee Walker.
I'm Lisa Kokab.
And we're going to talk to you tonight about our peer-to-peer and unified bocce ball and cornhole program. We're starting with a video about how peer-to-peer has impacted our students.
kid. And then after that, we became really good friends. And peer-to-peer has changed my whole life when I get to know it more and have
Like at the starting of the year, I didn't know what to say because people were like telling me what to do. But now, I get to stand up for myself because of people.
All around you, and I don't mind if it's me you need to turn to. We'll get by. It's the heart.
Peer-to-peer is my most favorite thing that I'm gonna do, and next year I'm gonna do it. So he is down there all alone, and they don't look like they're having a good day. You could always go over to them and say, "Hey, you want to play?" Doesn't look like you're having a good.
Small hours, these small hours, still will be.
We always play fun games and always talk about how to treat other kids nice. My favorite thing about peer-to-peer is that if somebody doesn't have a friend, somebody always goes and plays with them because of peer-to-peer. When I first started school here, I had hardly any friends, but now I have a whole big group I'm friends with.
When the road looks rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed, you just remember what your old past said. Boy, you got a friend.
The favorite thing about peer-to-peer is that you get to play games with your friends. And that's why I like peer-to-peer is that you can check on other classmates.
Friend in me. You got a friend in me. You got trouble. I got them too.
My favorite thing about peer-to-peer is that you learn to be kind to people with and without disabilities.
Get through, 'cause you got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. Some other folks might be a little bit smarter than I am, big and strong.
My favorite thing about peer-to-peer is that everyone can join together in a group, and you can always include people, and even people with disabilities can join because they can make the game maybe funner or something.
I got this feeling inside my bones. It goes.
And then there's another slide.
Yeah. There's more slides. Yep. Up.
So peer-to-peer is a curriculum. It's a research-based curriculum. The three of us take turns creating lessons every week that have an activity, a connection, and then a lesson about how to be a good friend and to build all of those relationships within our students.
So peer-mediated interventions are evidence-based practice for enhancing the social learning outcomes of students with autism and other developmental disabilities. When you are able to bring students together and they're finding something that they have in common, then you provide opportunities for a shared experience over extended amount of time. True lasting friendships form. And although there's a lot of evidence showing the benefits of a peer-to-peer program for students with disabilities, I really want you to know that there's so much research and evidence showing that it's a reciprocal benefit to our students without disabilities. Research is showing that our peers are having increased overall academic performance, an increase in attendance, and a huge decrease in behavioral referrals. So it's a win-win program.
We just want to celebrate that Horning is a unified champion school. You have to meet 3 pieces of criteria to be a unified champion school and to get grants. So we have to have a peer-to-peer program, which is a school leadership program. We have to have a unified club. We started bocce last year, and then we added cornhole this year. And then you have to have a whole school engagement piece. So last year we did an inclusion week. We provided lessons for gen ed teachers that they can do in their classroom. And then we also did a couple of spirit days along with that.
Okay, so like all academic programs, there's a cost to this program. We have worked really hard to make sure that it's a zero cost to our school district. Between some help from our PTO and then grants that we've gotten from the START initiative, you can see that our grant funding has grown as we went from a pilot to school-wide to our unified club. I I will tell you, like, the big component that you don't see up here is that human component. All of the planning, which takes hours, and the after-school running Unified is all done by teacher volunteers. So it's this great program that we're seeing a lot of benefits that is not costing our district
For
anything.
time, you can see.
Yeah,
This
you
one.
can skip this one. Oh. Okay.
So we started our program 3 years ago. It was our pilot year, and we started in just the third grade classroom with 45 students. We've grown it every year since then, and this year we tried to minimize and have smaller groups with our kids, but we still got up to 151 students this year. The video that we just skipped was applications that we sent for all of our kids to complete about why they wanted to be in peer-to-peer, and they all had such great answers. We had to end up taking everybody. Everyone said they wanted more friends or they wanted to help people, so we really, it
How do you
didn't.
say no to that?
Yeah, it didn't work the way we wanted. So we have 151 kids this year, and it's in
Okay.
all 4 grades. Yeah. So we interviewed some of our students at Horning about what peer-to-peer means to them and how it has helped them, and they're going to share what their thoughts were.
Hi, my name is Jax, and I am a 4th grader at Horning. My favorite thing about peer-to-peer is that we get to work with kids and have a lot of fun. Every peer-to-peer lesson starts with a question. Every week, the question is different. We find out that we are more alike than different.
Hold on. Yep, you're next, you're right.
Hi, my name is Zeta.
Really loud.
We learn how to help people and we play fun games. Every peer-to-peer has a lesson. One lesson was about being a bully blocker. We learned how to stick up for others and be a good friend.
Hi, my name is Nora, and I am a 3rd grader at Horning. I like being able to help kids who need it and having fun with them. Every peer-to-peer has an activity. One time, we played a game called Snowball Fight. We wrote down a fun fact about ourselves, crumbled the paper, then had 30 seconds to have a snowball fight. We picked up one of the snowballs and tried to guess who wrote the fun fact. It was fun.
Hello, my name is Gabriella, and I am in the 4th grade at Horning. I like peer-to-peer because of the activities, and I get to spend time with the people I usually don't play with. I love being a part of bocce because I'm at bocce and cornhole. Bocce is about sportsmanship. It's not just about winning. It's about cheering on for others. It brings us together so no one gets left out.
Hi, my name is Charlie, and I am in 4th grade at Horning. Peer-to-peer has helped me understand other people with special needs. I like going to Unified after school. One time I taught a boy how to throw a beanbag at cornhole boards.
And that concludes it. Our picture that shows some of our kids from the years in the past and how inclusion empowers all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you possibly get a picture of all the students and the teachers together?
Oh, sure. No.
See you behind them?
Oh, you want us to front that?
Yeah, right up here would be awesome. Thank you all so much. Great job. Thank you. Parents, you can come up and get pictures too. All right, ready? We have a few over here. Parents, come on up. Feel free to come right on up. Get yourself at home here. Good job, everybody.
On behalf of the board, I just want to extend a special thanks to all of you for being here this evening and sharing with us how impactful the peer-to-peer program and the unified program is. It's been an incredibly successful program for many years at the high school level, worked its way to Scranton, and it's so encouraging and heartwarming to see it now at the elementary level, and for the young students to, really, appreciate and get the experience of what that, all of that, those programs have to offer. So it's wonderful. Keep at it. I hope it keeps growing, and it's really wonderful to see how successful it is with the young students, and I'm sure that it will pay dividends as they get older, and they've already had that experience into high school. And so thank you very much for being here and sharing that with us. We very much appreciate it. We're very proud of all of you.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Feel free to stay as long as you want or as short. It's up to you. So we understand that students have school tomorrow. So with that, we're going to bring forward Ken Greibel and Nick Picano from BARC, who are going to give a presentation about the growth of our Brighton area recreational connection. So Mr. Greibel, Mr. Picano.
Does that work? Can you hear me all right? Okay, perfect. Obviously, hi, my name is Ken Greibel. I'm the Recreation Director for Brighton Community Ed, and Nick, myself, and Nicole, we oversee the entire operation for Brighton Area Recreation Connection, which over the years, we started this program back in 2016. The concept was to start this as an after-school recreation-based program. The community took to it very well, but since then, it has tripled, if not more than that, for what it is, and I'll kind of get into that. So we can go on to the first slide. So back when I was here was 2018, so thank you again for bringing me back, and there's some familiar faces I see still sitting in some of those seats. So back then, this is kind of what we ran with. That's one of our original photos back then. We had after-school programming. They did practice one day a week. They had games one day a week, and that was kind of it. Numbers were okay. We had to the very basic type programming, but the parents wanted more. They wanted to see their kids play. They loved the after school concept, but they want to be more involved. So going into 2018, 2019 and whatnot, go to the next slide. We started to change BARC into BARC Athletics, catering to not just after school sports, but travel sports as well, and also growing our actual after school sports program. So these are some of the teams that have been with us through the years. And basically this review will be as of 2025. So we saw 2018 last time I was here. Now we're going into 2025. And as you can see, the numbers have, some of them are even bigger. So our soccer program, between after school, travel, rec, camps, running multiple seasons, multiple times throughout the year, we're looking at about 1,200 participants. Now, some of them are returning. It's not 1,200 brand new, but they are returning, coming back. Our basketball program, we have the After School Winter League, and then a few years back, we actually partnered with Brighton Travel Boys and Girls Basketball, and we actually took on that program as a community ed program as well. So now we oversee that. I'll back here real quick. With the rec program, a lot of our parents wanted to get into travel, but didn't want to have to pay the premium price that travel sports run. So we started Brighton FC, which is our rec travel program. Through there, we started with a 14U team, and now it's basically grown from 10U up to 15U in the spring and fall. And this past year, we actually added on a girls program as well, because a lot of our after-school sports programs are co-ed based. And a lot of our parents do want to have that separation, which when you get into 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, there is a difference. So we started this rec travel program to kind of entice those students to get involved, and it has grown from there. Like I said, you can go back one more, sorry. The travel baseball softball program, it's, BYBFP has been around for years. That board was started to move on. A lot of them had kids now in college that were part of it. So, so we got involved, and now we do oversee that program, which has grown greatly. We still continue on the Bill Fleck baseball tournament, and then the Janine Defoe softball tournament. and do cancer clinics. And then our volleyball, which is basically student driven as coaches. I would say about 90% of our students are, 90% of our coaches are students in that program. We started a student to coach program where we basically hire students to come out and be a coach. And then we work with them on a handle developing children when they know how to run the drills. So it's been a very big pull, and our volleyball program has grown because of that. You can go to the next slide now. Continuing on, we did get into some high school sports as well, working with some of those teams, running stuff on off season. So we do, 2 years ago, we started an indoor lacrosse league at the indoor practice facility. We got into pickleball a few years ago, and that has grown. I've learned a lot more about pickleball. But you have the beginners up to the advanced. We are running mornings and evening programs. They register based on their skill set. And that was during the summer to kind of entice pickleball back before we had pickleball facilities in the area. So putting those courts in years ago at Scranton was a very smart idea. Some additional programs we run over at Maltby and some of the schools is a run club. Our track and field, we started here a few years ago in spring. We're going to be up to over 100 kids from K through 6th grade for that. Last year, we started a 7v7 one-touch football program. About a year ago as well, we started a cheer program, which has definitely grown because cheer in this area, a lot of people want to do it. There's not enough offering. So they reached out and we started our own cheer and stunt program. We've also established many partnerships, NFL Flag, Junior NBA, Skyhawks, Soccer Stars, and then we do work with Turn Into for some of our camps and clinics for softball. And then new coming into this spring, we just rolled out a rec baseball program. And then we're still finalizing the details on the softball aspect, but we'll be running that for spring, summer, and then hopefully fall is the game plan to kind of get more people into that. And then the youth and preteen yoga and the adult yoga, I'll explain a little bit here next in the next slide. So the fun part. Last year, we hired Nicole, who had a background in child development, and she's basically like, I want to do Mommy Me programming. So we established a new section of BARC called BARC Pups, which is pretty much babies up to toddlers and preschool kids. We do a lot of our programming at the indoor practice facility during the day for the stay-at-home parents or moms or grandparents or whatever. And these programs have completely taken off. These are some of the programs and pictures from those activities that we do run during the day over at the indoor facility. And then this is the list of the current programs we run for BARC Pups. We have the BARC Pups, preschool basketball, soccer, prenatal yoga, baby and mama yoga, strollers, song, sensory, sign language, BARC Pups music and movement. We have an open play, which we decided to take all the stuff that we have for BARC Pups, throw it out in the indoor practice facility, and let the kids just have fun. We hit 65 kids within 2 weeks for registration. We had it at 40. So Nick and a few of us had to go over there and help out with that, but they just loved it. And then we obviously added then T-ball, which was kind of the pitch to get into our rec leagues as well. So those are the programs we're currently running for that, but it's been a big success, and they love using that indoor facility definitely during the week. You can go next slide. And that basically wraps up an overview of our program. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So you're looking to add a lot of things, I guess.
Yeah, the goal was to grow. I mean, obviously we started off so small. We're not done yet. We're still adding and growing. And a lot of it's community reaching out and say, hey, we want this and we want that. The nice thing is that we have the facilities. Now we're building up the staff. Before I started, it was me in 2016. We now have two full-time staff members, and I have a couple part-timers as well that helps it grow. So as that kind of progresses, we're going to keep adding more, but there's a lot more that we can do. Youth baseball, I think it's going to be huge. It's starting off a little slow, but it's new, but it's one thing that we want to push. And then obviously, the Mom and Me programs, we didn't have a lot back in the day. And you can see from that, because I was kind of shocked thinking, all right, how many moms and parents or grandparents can be there during the week? And the numbers don't lie. They're really taking in that and using that facility. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I've shared this at prior board meetings, but for both of you, I've had at one time 8 children in the school district. So some of my older children, my wife and our older children have graduated, but every single one of my children have been through various BARC programs. And I think I speak for everybody in the community. We have an extensive friend network in Brighton and other districts. And you guys and gals do an incredible job. It's remarkable. I had no idea that it was extensive, like the reach of the programs are as extensive as what you just presented today. When I show up on a Saturday morning for my youngest, and then I'm back at 4 PM and I see you there all day, every day, folding chairs, sweeping the floor, emptying the garbage, cleaning the hallways. It's unbelievable the commitment that you make to our district and to our community and to all the youth that have been through these programs and adults. And I just want to say thank you, because you've just done a remarkable job. And it touches me every Saturday when I'm like all day you're there. And I've seen, students have break basketball games. You probably remember, Nick, middle of the game, a gal broke down in the middle of the game and literally ran right out of the middle of the game, just started screaming and ran right out of the arena, the gym, down the hallway at Hawkins. And you went down, got her calmed down, brought her back. She was able to continue. It was remarkable, absolutely remarkable. So thank you all for what you do.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
So it was interesting to see the volleyball using the students as coaches, the former students, and I was wondering, what kind of impact that has on the future programs. But additionally, I'm wondering, do you use the former participants, or how do you find your officials? Are they from the students' ranks? Do you have a
The officials themselves?
Yeah, the officials for the games.
Yeah. It varies. So back to one thing about the student thing, the student to coach program, like we have a lot of students that we interview them the best we can. They're high school students. They haven't been through that. But we basically tell them, treat this kind of like a job. You're going off to college and you're moving on. Like use this as you walk in and say, hey, I ran a 3rd and 4th grade volleyball team. That shows a lot as like a 15, 16, 17-year-old type thing. So and they've really embraced that. And the boys and the girls in the programs really look up to them because they're high school students. They're literally coming. Some of them are leaving to go play in their game or their practice after we get done. So that's been really good. Our volleyball, our officials, some are student based, some are adult based. Some we actually we run out. Not run out, but we get through MSHA officials. Like for basketball, we kind of need that adult presence. But for volleyball, we do use students, some of our former players or current players. Soccer, we also use a sign-up for that as well. A lot of them are actual students. You have to be 2 years older to do that game. But for our soccer leagues, for our travel, it kind of varies. Typically, we'll get a few students on the sidelines and we'll have an adult in the center, but that's obviously through one of our signers that we use. Yeah.
Just wanted to say I've had an opportunity to work really closely with both of these guys over the last few years. And from my standpoint, we appreciate everything you guys have done. I echo what Andy said. You've been great, flexible, dedicated, hardworking to try to make sure that these programs are successful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate sharing the tremendous success, and to echo what has already been said, kudos to both of you and the tremendous successful program that you've built BARC into, and we look forward to future success.
Yeah, hopefully I come back and not 5 years later, but maybe in 2, we'll see where we're at. But I'm thankful for having us and appreciate you guys' time, and thank you for that feedback. It does mean a lot. Like you don't get to hear that a lot, especially working in that type of field. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Great. Thanks.
All right, next up, I'm going to call forward Colleen Devin. Colleen, you want to just start us off, or do you want Jake and everybody to come forward?
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us. We're here this evening to recognize Jacob Steiner and our Bridge Boys basketball team. 3 years ago, Jacob, and this is Jacob, he's one of our special ed resource teachers. 3 years ago, he started just staying after school and supervising while boys played basketball. And then as the year went along, they became a little bit more organized. And then the second year, Jacob was able to connect with some other alternative high schools. And I believe there were 2 or 3. Lincoln High School, which is in Owasso, which is actually what the bridge is modeled after, Lincoln High School, and Legacy in Heartland. And so they had a couple of games, and then they had a tournament, and you probably remember last year the boys were here for Shining Stars. Well, this year it grew even more, and the boys were undefeated this year. So that was pretty awesome. But I'm going to turn this over to Jake. It is his evening. But I would like to say a few things about Jacob. He has a huge heart. He does all of this on his own time, sometimes using his own money. And we've seen, the boys grow not only in maturity, but also their attendance is better if they get to play basketball, and their grades have gotten better. So, and that's all a testament to Jacob's hard work. So thank you, Jacob.
We tried to entice some of our players to be here this evening, but, as part of our unique challenges, et cetera, this is not their thing. They're a bit nervous, a bit shy, but certainly on my behalf, I'm very proud of them and all their hard work. The undefeated season they had this year was really great. But just really, I was mostly proud of the fact that they carried themselves as both hosts of games as well as guests at other games, like just true sportsmen, real gentlemen, and they made us proud, both of our program as well as of our district. So it was a really, really nice thing to see. And but really, honestly, thank you so much to you for being such a champion of what we try to do and let the boys play the sport they love. And thank you to our staff. We have our math teacher, Heather Kuhlman, here, who all of our wonderful staff at the Bridge are super supportive of our kids and encouraging them, not only on the court, but in the classroom as well. And so it really takes a village, and this is certainly a village I'm very proud to be a part of. So, and thank you to you for all of your support for our program, and everyone here as well for being a vocal part of your community. And thank you for all your support of our kids. We hope to be able to continue that in the future. And thanks for having us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
And on behalf of the board, congratulations to Mr. Steiner and all of the boys on the team. We're very proud of them and for their tremendous success this year. Thank you for being here this evening.
Okay, the last portion of the superintendent report is an opportunity for the board members to ask questions of our facility team. Mr. Jones, who led this, as I've shared with the board, had a medical challenge. He's doing okay, but that has kept him away this evening. So we're going to, obviously, Mr. Jacobs is our expert in operations. We have some other folks here that are experts in different areas, but we're going to do the best to answer any questions that the board members have. The charge here was to look at a five-year capital master plan. And they have been working on this for quite some time. There's quite a bit of items that have been identified by our internal team, by the team that works for Scott, by our construction folks. Plant Moran also did an assessment and made recommendations that are embedded within this presentation. Obviously, the board members have had a chance to take a look at this, but this is a chance for you to ask questions of the team. So what kind of questions do you have for Mr. Jacobs and the team regarding some of the operational items? I should qualify this saying some of these are essential items. Some of these are things that we really should do, and other ones are truly luxuries. And but this gives you an idea of some of the things that might be on the docket over the next 5 years. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board.
Well, I'll start out. So the spreadsheet that we've received, that, as I understand it, is what is shown on the the screen above. That document represents an estimate, a projected estimate of the capital projects. It may not be an exhaustive list, but it's at least at this point a list that's been identified by the administration of what anticipates being needed, and represents a wish list of different projects that the district and the administration would like to undertake in the next 5 years. And then this has a projected cost for those items. Is that right?
Correct.
And that number, as I understand it, is about a little over $30 million for the items that are identified on this list. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The other thing I wanted to point out too is the state of Michigan dedicated funds to have Plant Moran was engaged to do an assessment of every school district in the state, and looking at identifying projects that would need to be addressed, whether it's roofs, HVAC systems, and they gave a recommendation based upon the scope of work that they were engaged to do by the state, and they did that with Brighton. Are all the things that were identified by Plant Moran in the report that they issued incorporated into this list? Is that?
Yes, most of them are. The list isn't complete from Plant Moran. That's why we don't have the complete list, but we have a good portion of that we can see. So we can only see it on the computer right now. We can't print it out. So that's what Dave put together off the computer from all the stuff that Plant Moran, the stuff that we felt was important off Plant Moran's list, we put on there. One of the items like fire suppression, fencing in our elementary playgrounds, that's all stuff that Plant Moran suggested that we do. New door hardware on all the classrooms so that they could be locked from the inside. I mean, there's a lot of items on there, but I mean, it's up to the board members to decide which ones they want to do. I mean, there's some that we do need to do.
The emergency generators, you and I discussed, that was part of theirs.
Correct.
Can you get to turn your, yeah.
I'm not used to these. Sorry. The emergency generators, you and I walked the district and looked at some of this stuff and the locations they're talking about. Fire suppression is a very big one. That would be a huge cost, and something that would be very, very burdensome for any school district. It takes in an existing building, trying to get that type of a system put into it, takes up a lot of debt. Most of it's demo, the cost, demo and getting it back together. It's a good one though. I mean, it's something we have to think about. Electrical panels were part of that. So you've got quite a few of them on here. And some of these I know are things from times ago, bonds that we were reaching out to do this kind of work before, and they're still on the list. For example, the transportation parking lot that never really got completed. It's just kind of patched. Yeah. So there's a lot of history here from our prior bonds of things that just didn't get accomplished that are still out there and probably need to be done more so now than ever. So it's a good list. Thank you.
So one of the things on there from the air conditioning, the gyms, yes. Plant Moran put on their list that the units were 32 years old. So they suggested we don't put DX coils in those units. We replace the units with new DX coils in them to get the air, if that's the way we're going to go.
And with regard to the current status of that Plant Moran report, do we have an idea of when they're going to complete the report and what type of additional information that may contain that's beyond what they've already done?
No, I don't have that information.
Okay.
From a process standpoint, we have, as it's shown here on the sheet, capital project funds of just under 9 million. From a process standpoint, what is the administration seeking from the board as it relates to identifying near-term priorities that we can fund versus near-term priorities that we may not necessarily want to fund with available capital? Can you provide guidance?
Absolutely. Obviously, Mr. Jones was prepared to talk about that tonight. I have put in a request for our April 14th meeting, for the second half of that meeting to be a workshop with the board to talk about projects and funding, to have that dialogue where we might have Baker Tilly in to talk about some of the financial options that we've talked about, as well as projects, but looking at the second half of that meeting being an opportunity for the board to discuss exactly what you're talking about. What projects, what funding, because what funding it is will determine how many of these projects can be done in what time frame.
Well, and if I may, to further elaborate on this, and it was something I was going to address when we got to the committee reports. We talked about this at length during the finance committee meeting. And so to kind of follow up with Dr. Outlaw's statement, the idea was that we've identified a list preliminarily, and I know that it's been a topic that's been reviewed as well in the facilities committee. On the April 14 meeting, we will have a further discussion of either the refinement of the list, talk about additional information regarding the scope of what the list includes, potentially identify other items that may be something the board may be interested in identifying. And as part of that, also that discussion is then to look at, and that may be where Baker Tilly may be able to assist us as well, is to look at the two different options of funding to pay for this capital projects list. Either a sinking fund or a bond, basically, would be the two options. And from a timing standpoint, if we were going to put a bond on the November election, we have to, from a process standpoint, we have to submit an application to the Michigan Department of Treasury that identifies the topics that we want to, or the scope of the work that we are proposing to do for that bond. And that has to be approved by the Department of Treasury. In order for that to be on the November ballot, for example, that would have to be, as I understand the timing, the Department of Treasury would have to approve that application by sometime in June. And so backing up then in the meetings, the idea would be that we would have a broader discussion in the April meeting about the list, the options for funding those projects. We talked about it at the finance committee, and I think, and I would certainly support that, is then once we've published that potential scope, solicit feedback from the stakeholders and the parents in the community to kind of get some feedback on what they might, whether, this is something they support, the scope of what's included. And then when we come back then in the May meeting, then make a decision at the May meeting. Are we going to support submitting an application to the Department of Treasury to put a bond on the ballot in November? And if so, then we'll have to submit that application. Or alternatively, do we want to pursue potentially a sinking fund to finance these improvements? The timeline for completing these improvements would be different under a sinking fund versus a bond, just because of the timing of when the revenue would come in. And it also, if ultimately the board opted to go at the May meeting with a sinking fund, there's no application that has to be submitted to the Department of Treasury. So there wouldn't be anything that would be required on that route. But at least if we follow that process, under whatever scenario we may decide to pursue, that will give us the timing that we need to be able to accomplish that time frame. So
I guess, from past experience on the board and, just looking at the list, which everyone in the audience can see, at least some of it. Will that give us as a board enough time to align on where we want to invest current dollars that we have versus any requirements that would be where we would need funding beyond what already is in our current district budget? It just seems, from prior workshops that I've been a part of, time is fleeting, and we consume it at a very rapid pace. And I'm wondering, will that give us enough time to, with credibility, speak to the public about what we think makes the most sense?
I agree. If I could interject, we always talk about it, and it makes it sound like we have to do it by June or not. It could be the next year. We would come up with a plan that we got to keep thinking like, it doesn't always have to be tomorrow. But yeah, maybe we come up with a plan that we're using funds from a little bit of element and attaining our goal in a much better economic way. but this is the start.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And to your point, Andy, I think as part of the conversation that we can have on the meeting in April, it can include, we have obviously the funds sitting there in the capital project. I think we should, as part of that dialogue and discussion, decide if we want to move forward with, projects that we currently have funding for and to prioritize. One of which may be turf,
Yeah,
I mean,
I've not hit this from, in prior conversations at the board table, I've mentioned, the gym, air conditioning for the gym is one of my personal wants and something I'll continue to advocate for. And yeah, no, I've shared, I've sat next to a lot of elderly grandparents in 95-degree gymnasiums where people are like soaked, like literally just dripping. And I think it's time for us to help fix that. So anyway, okay.
I just have two quick questions, thanks. Just for clarity. The first one is the high school band instruments acoustics. What approximately is that breakout and what would the acoustics potentially just generally involve? Is that upgrading the existing band room?
I was wondering the same thing.
Well, we did get some, we got some pricing on some new acoustic tiles. They're about inch and a quarter thick. We could put those in-house. The price on that was $18,269. That's just one of the upgrades. There was talk about raising the roof higher so they had the right height.
But this would just be putting the tiles in the
for a
existing
quick
room.
fix for right now, to
That's
knock
kind
the
of
noise down would be.
And then do we as a district buy the instruments for the members of the band? When I was in band in high school and we bought our own instruments.
So yeah, I was just going to mention the instrument list. There is like a kind of a wish list, but there's also a replacement list. We buy things like the expensive, like a tuba is like $5,000. And we buy drums and we buy like some of the more expensive giant, I forget what the bass bassoon, something like they're big instruments, bass clarinet. And so there's certain ones, there's a list that the band boosters and the current band director and others have worked on for investment purposes. So there is a list. There are other ones like trumpets and things like that people buy their own or lease them.
And my a second question is on the classrooms listed that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, I guess, on the elementary classrooms. Is that addition? So we'll be adding on a classroom? Like, I'm just curious where that 750, what that's representing.
Is that adding classrooms?
Yeah, so the idea was that if, and let's see if it's right above that, we were looking at doing, these are wish list items. A wish list item would be to add a gymnasium at both Horning and at Spencer. And we thought as part of that, because we've been having capacity issues in all of our elementaries, just because there's been so much demand, that it would be in our best interest to probably build a couple of additional classrooms on each of our elementaries. Again, those are wish list items, but that would create space for us to be able to do things like a sensory room for other buildings other than, Hawkins, special education. We have, more than 4 classrooms in some of our grades and some of our buildings. So adding extra classrooms on was something that we thought would be a beneficial investment if we were going to do that gymnasium, is to consider that as well.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question on the timing, because it looks like the first year it's like nearly 15 million. The second year is 5.5. The next year is a little over 6, a little over 3, and then down to $500,000. What's the reasoning for kind of the timeline? Is the stuff in the first year more urgent, or is there
Well,
another?
there are some urgent things on there, like the transportation, the gas tanks, the chiller, but the air conditioning in the gym. I mean, those are, if you're going to do that, those gym units are probably 6 months. Is that what they're just about 6 months to order? 6, 7, maybe a little longer, 8 months. So that might not even be something, if we decided to do, we could do this summer to get those units in time. Might be the following summer. But there are some urgent things that we need to do right away.
Okay, because I'm just wondering, because that's a big outlay.
The turf fields is one of them.
So some of it is determined by the funding option that maybe you go with. There is, $8.9 million in that capital improvement fund. So I think that weighed into why it was towards the front also, that you just earmarked all those dollars. So I think that was one part of it also. But if it is a bond of, bringing money in, you're investing earlier, I think was the thought, that there are some immediate things that would be great to get done.
So depending on funding, we could move it a little bit.
Absolutely. I think all of this could be fluid depending on funding, preference of the board, all of that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alicia.
One thing I'd like to mention, we throw the word bond around, and the one thing I just kind of want people to know about it, the reason we even think about it is this would probably be the only time in the history of school that we could get the money from the bond and still watch our taxation cut in half, because it's about to make a drastic change. And that's why we kind of we got to talk about this now, because that's only going to be for a short period of time. I think it behooves us, and we'd almost be doing an injustice to the community if we didn't tell them that was an opportunity we had right now to actually fund the rest of the things that we need done, and they will still see their taxes drop in half. And as we pay that off, it'll continue to go down from there. So we're going to be talking about it, educating people, and looking at what our options are.
I feel like I just need to fulfill a campaign promise to a certain Horning student, Jacob, that asked me when I was out doing door-to-door that he really thinks that Horning needs a Gaga pit. So at some point on this wish list, fulfilling Jacob's request to put a Gaga pit in Horning. Jacob was the most engaging constituent I ran into on the campaign trail, and he asked me a lot and understood a lot about government for a fourth grader.
Well, and just to kind of follow up with that too, I mean, there may be other projects that, we get feedback from the community that we hadn't necessarily thought of, but I mean, we can get that feedback of what the community may desire, and that's why having this list is obviously a great start. But and as I said at the beginning, it's not an exhaustive list. I mean, I think that certainly while we're doing this, we can take a look at a wish list from community members and see hopefully from a timing standpoint, we can, if that's the case, we can get cost estimates that would give us the ability to make reasonable projections. So, okay.
Is there a mechanism to solicit feedback? This was great, Dr. Ola, the effort that went into letting the community know we were genuinely interested in this feedback resulted in, I think, probably some of the best numbers that we've seen on anything that we've requested.
At the facility committee meeting, do you want to just talk about this? This was kind of an idea that Mr. Stahl had. Do you want to mention that?
No, you have to tell me where I'm going with this.
Okay, so what we mentioned was after the conversation on April 14th, maybe we have this dialogue about polling. Do you want to, sorry.
Yes. We've already got the instrument in place. We've used it. We've seen it on this one. But getting it out there, and we have to somehow find a way to reach, maybe if it's newspapers or articles, whatever, WHMI, get the information out that we're looking to find out what the community is noticing and what they would like to see done in the district. They might know something's damaged and we haven't found it yet. There are hidden little areas of this district that we don't go in every day. Or maybe it's something that would make it, make it more attractive to more kids. We're always looking to improve for the younger kids. We're looking at the fours coming into our district. This is an opportunity you'll see some things happening around here to make way for that. But every age and I'm talking retirement age too, something I'll be seeing soon, hopefully, is an opportunity for you to say, hey, I'd like to see this in my district. Maybe I'd like to see that list come to us, be published with our pamphlets or our books here every week that we are up here and we talk about it. We go, hey, look what came in. Here are some ideas. So they know they're being heard, and we genuinely want to know. Some of the best ideas come from the people that have to bring their kids to school every day and use the facilities. So we're looking for that kind of output, and by all means, let's spend a little money to get it. Let's get the community involved.
So in prior meetings, we've discussed soliciting input from teachers. Have we solicited feedback and input from teachers in the district?
On operations?
On facilities, like area,
Yeah.
things that teachers value and care about as it relates
That
to
was the,
instruction?
So I think that was the idea, was that we would get a variety of constituents, including students that go here as well, give them a
Okay.
shot as well.
Right.
They're living and breathing it. So yeah, absolutely.
So it's safe to say, up until now, no formal feedback's been requested from teachers?
I think it would be probably through the principals. I know that you have been, the principals have been polling and going through buildings and whatnot. You know, this has been going on for a couple of years of identifying different things. I don't think it's been formal though, like it hasn't been like a survey or anything like that. It would be just asking questions and, yeah, so I know that there's been quite a bit of feedback.
We actually have a facilities committee. We have a bunch of committees within our school. We have, 4 teachers who are going around looking at different things. We're upgrading our office area right now too, and there's some protections in the hallway. So within the building, that's what we're.
So has this list the master list that we're being presented tonight, does it reflect input from the facilities committee? Okay.
I would say that this list does reflect feedback from parents in particular. We've talked about this at our Parent Advisory Council, which is the PTO council. We've talked about this numerous times. The PTO has given a long list of ideas. For example, the extra classrooms at the elementary school has come from that group. The idea of doing a gymnasium at both Spencer and at Horning came from our parents. So yes, there's been that, but I think doing something formally on a broader scale to get feedback from more, I think would be advisable.
Yeah, I mean, I know earlier we mentioned possibly waiting until after we have our meeting in April, but frankly, I mean, there probably doesn't need to, probably don't need to wait, right? We could probably just, get the communication out to, obviously the teachers, all the employees, parents, and, get that information out there now, include, that this is a preliminary list that's been identified, but we're open to receiving feedback from all stakeholders so that we can, take all of it into consideration for, everyone that would like to make suggestions for consideration.
I'll put it together this week.
Perfect.
Along those lines, though, I think you have to be really careful of how you communicate it, because I think if you're talking about coming out with some of these luxury items, people are gonna say, wait a second, we still have kids that can't read, and why aren't we paying teachers more? And none of the money we're talking about for using for this, or at least in the new proposals, would be eligible to do those other things. So I think you have to communicate that to the community really carefully, that there are streams of money that can only be used for facilities, and we are looking at those streams of money for that. Because otherwise, I think you start to get down a PR nightmare that, we still only have 68% of kids that are reading by 3rd grade. Why are we spending money on air conditioning in a gym?
Anything else for us? So otherwise, we will prepare for a more robust, workshop type discussion in the second half on April 14th. We'll put together a facility poll, and as soon as that's ready, we will move forward. This is the second week of our strategic planning, or final week of the strategic planning survey. So I'd love to launch it after that closes. But maybe on Monday of next week, maybe we can launch the facility feedback survey.
Dr. Outlaw, could we get this on our website and maybe put it in poignant areas like where I have to go and put money in for my son to eat every day? Areas that we're going to anyways, then there'll be a little blurb that says, hey, we're doing this survey. What do you think? It just might, because I know that's about the only reason I have to go on there.
Perfect. Sure. All right. Thank you, everyone. That's it for the superintendent report.
All right, so that moves us now to the call to the public. This is the time at which anyone that is here this evening that would like to address the board, this is your opportunity to do so. our protocol is to fill out a card at the rear of the room, place it in the box to the left of Dr. Mosier. I will call your name. At that point, you will have 3 minutes to address the board. When 30 seconds is left in your allotted time, Dr. Krebs will give you a yellow card indicating that you have 30 seconds left. When your 3 minutes is up, she will raise a red card signifying that your time has concluded. It's not a question and answer session. This is just an opportunity for members of the public to address the board. So I will start. The first card I have is Andrea Shorkey.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Andrea Shorkey. I am co-president of the Horning Elementary School PTO. I'm going to start quickly. My daughter had written a speech to give to all of you tonight. She's in the peer-to-peer program at Horning Elementary, and she is at home under the weather. 'Tis the season. But she made me promise I would say her speech to all of you. I think Horning Elementary is the best school because they have specials, and it helps us learn what specials are. Secondly, they have a birthday for every day, even if it's on the weekends. Thirdly, they take pictures every year. Fourth, there is a therapy dog named Susie. And last, the teachers are so lots of O's nice. So that is from my daughter, 2nd grade. Again, my name is Andrea Shorkey. I have had the wonderful fortune of having all 3 of my children attend Horning Elementary School over the years. Horning is a busy, bustling school. You can just feel the joyous energy whenever you are there. As co-president of the Horning PTO, which I want to say is something I never would have considered doing if I didn't completely adore and respect our staff. I have had the privilege of working closely with the staff there over the last few years. I can unequivocally state that every person working in that building is so invested in their students. They are not only invested in their educational health and growth, but their emotional health and growth as well. Our Horning families, and honestly, our community as a whole for that matter, are so incredibly lucky to have them instructing, loving, and caring for our precious children. And on behalf of the PTO, we just want to say we love you and we thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I hope your daughter feels better soon.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry she couldn't be here tonight.
Yes, thank you so much.
Jeannie Price.
Hi. My name is Jeannie Price. I teach 1st grade at Spencer Elementary, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the writing pilot that we're doing there and how wonderfully it's going in my classroom. It's very exciting. It's to support writing in a way that we haven't been able to in Brighton. We haven't had the programming this intentionally. So it's something we've been needing, and it's just going very well. The kids love it. The lessons are easy to follow. Our pilot team has worked to create slides to make it really easy for the teachers to present to the students and the students to interact and engage in the program as well. It has an I do, we do, you do format. So I'll pull up the slide and it'll be something where I'm showing them, a sentence structure. And then we talk about it together, and they might come up on the board and write together with me. And then they go off to their books and they do it independently, and I can kind of bop around and see what they're doing. So it's going very well. It's very intentional. It focuses on sentence structure, uppercase, lowercase, spaces, punctuation, things we've done. Here and there, teachers do it in their own way, but having this program makes it very intentional for everybody in the district K2 to be following the same language and teaching the same things in the same way. It also talks about sentence types, parts of sentences. In 1st grade, we're talking about revision and subject and predicate and nouns and verbs and things we haven't really been very specific on and really knowing how to do unless you've been doing it for many, many years and you know where to throw it in. At the end of the week, the kids decide if the piece that they've been working on should go in their portfolio. And before they can put it in, we have to talk about, Well, what do you notice? What makes this a good enough piece to go in? Looking at the structure of your sentence, even down to the handwriting, they have to be able to explain to you what makes it a good piece. And they're very, very excited. When I first introduced these, we didn't have time that Friday to do it. And the next Monday, they're like, are we doing it? Are we putting our pieces in? And I was like, okay, calm down. So the fact that they're loving it is really what's important. Because when you look at it and you think, oh, it's a workbook, but it's not, it is. But then you pull the pieces out, you decide if they're good, you put them in the portfolio, and then we talk to them. And then I have students who aren't quite there with their writing yet. So what I'll do is I'll write with a highlighter, what for them to trace, but then talking about, okay, let's notice how I'm writing it. The first letter is a capital, and let's look at the spaces. So having the conversation, and then they can do something else with it, which tracing it to work on their handwriting. And then for the higher flyers, they can do more because there's extra pages in there for them to write more than just one sentence. And just real quick, I want to read what my kindergarten cohort and first grade or second grade have to say. So our kindergarten teacher says, I really enjoy the Heggerty writing we have been piloting this year. I feel it's teaching my students skills valuable for writing and language skills that other grades have told us, she teaches kindergarten, have been lacking. For example, in my most recent unit, we are teaching about different types of nouns and verbs. So this is kindergarten. My students know that every sentence they write or speak should have a noun and a verb, and we're working on the mechanics of writing basic sentences, which as a kindergarten teacher is where I feel students should be at during this stage of their career. That way, the knowledge they learn in kindergarten can help support them in the upper grades. And so the program carries through kindergarten and up to first. We can, now mind you, we're starting mid-year, but so next year, those kids coming up will be ready to go with that language. And then our second grade teacher, real quick.
Ms. Price, I'm going to have to stop you at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I tried to give you a little bit of time, but yeah.
I'm so sorry.
At some
Okay.
point, yeah.
Second grade teacher loves it too. So it's going really, really well. We're very, very excited. So.
Well, thank you very much
Yes.
for sharing that.
Yeah.
We really
Yeah.
appreciate it. And then Anna Boone.
Hi, my name is Anna Boone. I'm a community member. I have two daughters. One is seventh grade at Scranton and one's a freshman at the high school. And I've been sort of watching, unengaged, engaged enough to be watching the support of the Brighton Area School District to the arts curriculum. And first of all, I want to say that I love being in a district that is so supportive to arts and creativity. It's incredible. The BCPA, the support for the bands, the support for the arts curriculum. I think that there's an opportunity to be even better and to increase that support. My experience so far with my high schooler, she's a very talented artist. My husband and I are 100% supportive of finding a way to help her have a creative career. And twice she's come home from scheduling events in tears, saying that the words, the direction she's been given is that she needs to think of something else because you can't make any money in arts or music. So I'm not here to ask for that to be corrected, but just to say I'm committed now to being more engaged as a parent. And, how can we take this incredible engagement that we already have and, maybe figure out where the holes and the disconnect are in the communication. I've reached out to Mrs. Marzoni, just asking her what, she's the art teacher. What does she see? What could parents do to be more engaged, to be more supportive of kids? And so they know what classes they can take. So that's something I'm doing. And so I just wanted to come and say something in just a positive way and not bring a problem and just learn how a board meeting works and say hello and that's it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. That concludes the call to the public portion of our agenda this evening and moves us to for action. Item A is the meeting minutes of February 10, 2025. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Moved by Mr. Storm. Support by Mr. Stahl. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to item B, the first day of school. And this has been a topic that has been previously discussed at board meetings. We, as the board, have to decide when the first day of school will be. In furtherance of that determination, there was a survey that was sent out to the parents and I believe staff and the stakeholders. We did receive the results of that survey. And so at this,
Responded, Roger?
several thousand, I don't have the actual number. Oh, 22,478 responses, which is great. It's probably the most we've ever had in response to a survey. So thank you for that feedback. It's always very helpful for us in learning what their desires are on any particular topic. So in any event, so what has been discussed as a prospective first day of school is either the Monday before Labor Day, which would be August 25th, and proceeding forward that week for 4 days, and then not having Friday before Labor Day, and then obviously Labor Day off, and then continuing on the Tuesday after Labor Day, or alternatively having the first day of school be the Tuesday after Labor Day. So those are the two options that have been discussed. Those were the two options that were the subject of the survey. And so do we have a motion? Does anyone have a motion to designate which of those dates they would like to approve for the start date?
Motion to accept the no change, start after Labor Day. It was 67.3% of votes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Stahl to have the Tuesday after Labor Day be which is not September 2, right, which is September 2nd, as the first day of school. A motion by Mr. Stahl, any support by Mr. Storm. Any discussion?
I think the statistics are pretty strong. First of all, thank you to everybody who responded. And as I was looking at it, it's 75, so 67% preferred a post-Labor Day start. 75% would be okay with the post-Labor Day start. To me, that's pretty compelling. I'll just leave it at that. And thank you to everybody who responded, all 2,478 people.
All right.
I'd just like to mention, I just happened to say it first. I think everyone up here was going to do that. I think, in fairness to everyone up here.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. All right.
Spread the word.
Tell them out so they can leave.
All right, so that concludes the for action portion of our agenda. Moves us to for future action. Item A, athletic turf replacement. Would Mr. Thompson like to make a presentation?
So I know you had a closed session earlier, so I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at any of these tables or.
We had a break.
Did you? Okay.
We
Okay.
can't tackle each of us.
Yeah. Hey, y'all made it to the meeting, so must be good. I've got Mike Forsythe with me. I'm sorry, Mike Sims from Forsythe Design, who is doing a lot of our architectural work in terms of the design and the specs and those type of things. And it's been in this business a long time. You can see where we're at diagram wise. We're pretty close. I don't know that we're
100% there, but we're close. We've done a lot of work in the last 10 days, 2 weeks. Likewise, with gathering pricing from vendors, consortium pricing, as we talked about through Sourcewell. So kind of where we're at is, I don't know that we're in 100%, go mode in terms of actually which turf. I mean, I think we have some recommendations that we like, but there's also some unknowns out there in terms of products on the ground, that have been put down and used, and where those type of things are, which you get when there's, when everybody's rolling out new technology, so to speak, somebody's got to be the first to put it in. So, but kind of where we're at is looking at AstroTurf, who's been a vendor of ours. They were kind of the middle of the road, medium pricing. Shaw was high, and then Sprint was low on the pricing. So if you were looking at a typical bid, even though this is consortium pricing through Sourcewell, they do have the ability to retain some of their flexibility. So where we're at, and we price this out with pad and or without pad. Now, what I would tell you is that from the last time that we did this exercise, probably the whole pad, no pad question was probably a little bit more 50-50-ish. Now it's a little bit more 75-80%, install the pad. So a lot of people ask, well, why are we going to spend that money and put a pad on? Because you have GMAX ratings and HIC tests and all those type of things where, you can go without a pad and meet spec and be, meet safe spec and those type of things. But it does help you a little bit in terms of playability. But what it really does is, I think as a board and as a community, it allows you to say that, we've done everything that we can to put the safest field out there for kids to play on. And if you ever had an issue, I think that's an important thing. Not saying that you don't have backup without, if you went without a pad, but my recommendation today, as opposed to, 13, 14 years ago, would probably be to go with a pad. I think it's the most prudent thing. I think it's money well spent, whether you call it an insurance policy or we're talking about playability, any of those type of things. So regardless of vendors, I would recommend, that we look at a pad. So, while we're talking about pads, Shaw produces their own. That's this pad right here. So it's kind of recycled carpet fibers and those type of things. These are like 15-yard wide strips that go the length of your field, so 15 by about 80, and those roll out and it goes on top of it. So this probably wouldn't be my first choice for a couple of different reasons in terms of moisture and some of those type of things. I'm just not 100% convinced, plus some of the makeup of what goes into this pad. A little cautious on it. Probably the pad that I feel most comfortable with in terms of both supply and the product itself is the product from Brock. Okay, so a little bit different looking. We call it a jigsaw puzzle type of approach. And then there's a ProPlay pad, which is manufactured in Michigan. It's a solid product. I think it's a little, I can tell you from terms of quality and pricing and those type of things, it's a little below the Brock pad. But I do think that our vendor is willing to, extend the same pricing for the Brock pad as it would this pad. There's been a couple bumps in the road. Last summer was decent. A couple of summers before, some of the supply and demand for getting this particular product, even though it's right out of Michigan, is, there were a couple bumps on the road with that. So my recommendation on pad wise would be the Brock pad. pause here for a minute and we'll just stay on the pad category a little bit. If you have questions, great time to ask them about pads. You know, Mike's our expert. He certainly is going to know more than I would, but.
I have a quick question. I know, Mr. Thompson, you shared this with me, but I don't know about the rest of the board, on the lifespan of the pad. And I think you had indicated that it typically can go through 2 cycles of turf. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct. And all vendors are pretty consistent in saying that. So you get another, 12, 13, 14 years down the road and you go to do this exercise again, you're not going to replace a pad. You're going to just go over that pad. So one of the downsides to this product is it's not UV resistant. So when you take this pad off, you've got to store this in a shady area or in a garage or what may have you. So in terms of install for, your project, it creates a little extra time, extra work, extra cost. Any other pad questions?
My understanding is the uniqueness of that is it's a 4x4 sheet, the Brock pad. And that it makes it easier, let's say we have some damage in the field, rather than having to remove perhaps that whole pad or having to seam a bunch of it together. Now you can take a couple pieces off, put them right back in.
Yeah, I think that's one benefit, and I think the drainage of the Brock product is a little superior to the other 2 products. Just, anecdotally, in terms of speaking with people, who've done all different versions of it, so.
So I noticed that there were the different widths, which one are you recommending?
Yeah, we would be looking at the 14 XL shock pad, so that would be. This.
And would that be the same for all the fields?
Yeah, I would recommend just staying consistent. When you look at, if you're going apples to apples in terms of what this gives, this has got a little more sponginess to it. So when you're putting your foot down and those type of things, there's just a little more give to this than kind of what we've got in some of the other, not saying that I know people put those other pads down too. They're fine, but my preference is I think the Brock pad, just based on the research that we've done at this point. Somebody's got to ask Mike a question.
Well, my question is, so with the Brock pad, the proposed or the bid price with the pad through AstroTurf, does that price contemplate the use of the Brock pad?
It does.
Okay.
So a little backstory on that. Originally, the Pro Play pad was quoted. So we got revised numbers today, this afternoon. Because I started asking a lot of questions about pads. And based on those questions, I think it became evident that, the direction that I was, looking at in terms of some of the attributes that the Brock pad has. And so they revised that. Their original numbers were Pro Play.
And related to that, is the work that goes into the subsurface below the pad any different, depending on the one
No,
pad versus the other?
Same amount of work. Mike, you want to talk about how that goes?
Yeah, so typically, when the type of aggregate, so underneath the turf field currently is a free draining aggregate material. It's loose rock. It's about 1.5 inch in size, angular. So you get all these stones that lock together underneath the turf field. That profile is about 8 inches thick. When the old turf comes off and we're looking to prepare for a new pad, it's really hard to kind of get a very finite grade out there, making sure that we can kind of get, we don't have any squirrely lines. So what the contractors have to do is excavate some of that larger stone off and bring in essentially like a paver stone, you'd put under like brick pavers. It's kind of that consistency. Free draining, it's a limestone aggregate material, but that's intended to just kind of provide a very smooth, level surface out there. That thickness is only going to be about 1 inch. That's again, just intended to provide a little bit of a leveling pad, a leveling base for that pad to go on, and then the new turf goes on top of the pad. So it's just that's some of the prep work. It's no different. That prep work is no different whether you select one of the 3 pad options that we have.
Another point that was brought up by Mr. Thompson during our facility committee meeting was that by using a pad, it would potentially mitigate those fibers or the back threading being like shredded or ripped over time.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I would say, you know, our office, we're a design firm. We design athletic facilities. So in addition to Brighton, we have a lot of K-12 clients. Athletic facilities is all we do. So we see a lot of turf fields every year. To that point, you know, on the back of the turf, as John's kind of holding up, a traditional turf installation or turf system includes a tufted fiber. So a fiber would get kind of sewn through a piece of paper, basically. It gets looped up and then cut off. As that loop goes around and you have that exposed backing, most manufacturers apply a polyurethane adhesive to the back of that, and that's called a secondary backing. The amount of weight of that roll, you know, is generally measured in ounces. So roughly 24 ounces per square foot of weighted urethane is applied to this. Okay. The more product you put on the back, the stronger that's going to be. With a typical installation, I'll say without a pad, you know, this material is just kind of left exposed on that aggregate material that's below stone aggregate. So as the turf kind of moves a little bit through use and just general play, the back does have a tendency to wear down as it's kind of just that friction's building over 8, 10, 15 years and rubbing on the back of the turf or on the back of the stone. So what could happen, I'm not saying this is on every project, is when fields get into an older age of use, kind of like what your fields are now, and again, I'm not saying this is exhibited out there, but that coating starts to wear off, and so you start seeing fibers that start to pull out. That's a sign of aging, and a sign that your field's at a failure level. Again, not anything that we really saw out here in any of the 3 schools, but it is something that we've seen is kind of a cause for maybe I'll say accelerating wear, but maybe not getting the most use out of it, that you would expect to get out of it. Where we see fields that have a pad, we generally see about 2 to 3 more years of life on them when we look to replace them. So the industry standard is about 8 years for a turf field. That's what the fields are warranted for 8 years. I would say we generally see fields lasting 10 to 12 years, probably more in the 12 to 15 year mark. Fields that we're replacing over pads generally will probably be at that 14 to 15 year mark. It's just, they seem to hold up better over time, more consistent. You don't have the fiber loss and that friction building up. And I think, with what we've seen with fields with a pad, again, they maintain a very consistent level of play out there. If you're low on infill or it's overused one weekend for a lacrosse tournament or something, you've kind of got that added stability there of the pad to kind of provide protection for the athlete, a level playing surface for the ball, so that it provides multiple advantages. Does that answer your question?
Any other questions about? Were you still just talking about the padding or overall?
We're just talking about padding. Let's
Okay.
switch gears kind of to turf if we're good on pad questions.
I would like to just maybe add one more thing in regards to the pad. So as I mentioned, the turf is warranted. It's an industry standard for 8 years. All the pads carry a 16-year warranty. So again, as John mentioned, the thought is it would carry you through that 2 life cycles of warranty. We know you're going to get probably more than 8 years out of these fields. And as was kind of stated earlier, the size of those panels, they're measured in metric, but they're roughly 4 by 6, 4 foot by 6 foot. So again, if we'll say 12 to 15 years from now, we look to replace the field again, you do an evaluation, and there might be maybe 1 or 2 panels that might need to be replaced, and it's that simple. Pretty uncommon, with that type of turf product. As John mentioned, we see this type of product from this manufacturer. We see this not necessarily holding up so well over time through replacements. It doesn't kind of maintain its consistency in composition. So that's why we're a little bit more of a proponent of one of those Brock products or the Schmitz products. It's a little bit more of a, to me, it's a better performing product for a longer period of time. And it's not specific to one manufacturer, turf manufacturer.
Would it be recommended to have added stock to that? Just because, I mean, if you do get 15 years out of it, you might have a hard time finding the exact product.
Generally, you'll get probably about a half a pallet, which is going to be maybe 20 sheets. You know, it's not too big of a storage area for Scott and his team. Anything more than that, you really wouldn't need. It's just going to kind of take up space. The product is not, it's been manufactured probably well over 20 years, either the Schmitz product or the Brock product. Schmitz started in Europe, so it's probably 40 plus years old. But as John mentioned, they do have their only manufacturing plant here in the United States is in Coldwater. So it's a very local source. But we've seen, as John mentioned, they developed that product as a byproduct of the auto industry. So they take a lot of foam products and doors and moldings and things like that. The auto industry has been shifting away from injected foam and going with other products. And so raw material sources has been a little short. So that's why I don't want to, I think it's a tremendous, both products are tremendous, but I don't want to get in a position of late summer and, hey, we got a situation of not getting the product we were expecting. We know what we can get from the Brock product. It's reliable, dependable, and very available as well. So.
Talk about turf a little bit. I'm going to start with this. Let me start with this product. So this is the AstroTurf 3 blend 52 ounce. So when you look at turf, you're talking a lot about fibers. Likes the science. Science got enough fiber without a doubt. But you've got, your fiber thickness and all of those type of things. This product is what we had at the stadium. So at the time when we did these 3 turf fields, this was the top shelf product on the market. So we put this field on at the stadium, we put a blend over at Scranton, and then we did kind of a workhorse product out back price. This product has held up extremely well for the amount of use and what we do out there. I'm very satisfied with this product. You'll notice a couple turfs that kind of stand up on their own. And we'll talk about that in a minute. All turf is going to have some type of infill in it. It's a sand rubber combination. Probably a little bit more towards baseball and softball fields. They come up with different options throughout the year. So that's what's making your fibers stand out. What's different about this product is it has a root zone in it. So it's really, really hard to see. But down at the bottom, instead of me just scraping down the black underlaying of the plastic, is you've got an actual set of smaller fibers that are on the bottom of that. Now, part of that is, each company is going to give you their pitch, right? But one of the things with the root zone, aside from I think it helping with wear and tear, is when you plant on that, it allows you to come out a little bit cleaner in terms of, changing direction and those type of things. So from that standpoint, I've been extremely pleased with this product that we had. Now what they've now done is come out with the next generation of it, which is a 60 ounce as opposed to a 52 ounce. Same concept, same product, same backings, all those type of things. Just a little thicker, a little plusher, a little more cushion, all of those type of things. So I think the Root Zone product has been very good for us. The one product that's out there right now, there's 4 fields in with about another 26 to go, So their latest and greatest product, and one thing, perhaps, contrast here, is this has a root zone in it as well, but you'll notice that it's, you know, a little bit more of a stand-up type of product. So as all these companies, you know, compete against each other, everybody's trying to, you know, match and do those type of things. So when we talk about Shaw and some of their Game On products, you see that there's some similarities in terms of what's different that I like, okay, is if you look at the backing, this is a woven backing, as opposed to the needle just going through the thread of this and then coming out, and then the polyurethane coming on top of it. I'm sure Mike can give a much more scientific and detailed explanation than my, you know, rookie turf guy talk, but I think this product is worth considering. I really do. You know, I would look at something like this for the stadium. I would look at the root zone because it's been tried and tested. The 52-ounce root zone for the other two fields. So if I was talking high school stadium, I would talk to either A, the 60-ounce root zone, or B, this woven type of product. But that said, those two high school fields we're projecting to do the following summer. So we don't have to make all these decisions tonight. Okay? And we still have some moving pieces going. So that's kind of, you know, my thoughts on that from that standpoint. Probably, you know, when the committee met and, you know, we've been talking, I've been working through stuff, going back and forth with Mike, going back and forth with vendors. Probably the next group up that, you know, I think has some appeal was the Shaw products. You know, in terms of economy of scale and how they put their lines in and less seams, those type of things, there's some similarities between the woven product and the Shaw Game On product. You know, everybody's going to offer you, you know, the workhorse product, all those type of things. They all keep an inventory of basically 3 or more different type of products, but kind of where we're leaning right now is kind of as I discussed, you know, the 52-ounce 3D root zone, and either the 60-ounce or the woven product to be, you know, to be determined. So we still have, you know, some work to do, some decisions to make, those type of things. We do have the pricing out, and that pricing from all three vendors will hold not only for this summer's install, but next summer's install. So, you know, I think that's an important, you know, thing. We're going to get this year's prices for all three fields, even though we're doing the next two, and typically that's not the case. Most of you who are in business know how that goes. It normally goes up. Doesn't never typically go down, but, you know, I think them being willing to hold all three of their prices, you know, and I would also tell you some of the negotiation back and forth on that woven. There's not a field in Michigan with that product in. Right now, there's one in North Carolina. There's one being installed in Florida. Fresno State's putting it at their football stadium out on the West Coast. They hope to have 26 to 30 of those fields in. You know, I don't mind taking a leap of faith, you know, but I also, you know, like actually stepping on a product and being able to talk to people that have had it in, and we'll have that opportunity down the road. But turf questions in terms of fibers, in terms of back end, in terms of.
Are they annual maintenance costs? I know they all need annual maintenance. Is it the same regardless of product?
Yeah. So your ballpark about $3,000 a field, AstroTurf, you know, would be $2,800 a field because they're going to do all three. You're going to get about the same deal from everybody. So, you know, I think one of the things that, you know, I would recommend is that we, you know, from the jump, do the annual maintenance. You know, the early years, yeah, you're probably going to be fine and our people, but The benefits that come with it is, they're doing the pile height, they're checking all the fillings. You get the layout, you get all the measurements. They tell you exactly where you're high, exactly where you're low. They fix all that stuff. And, over time, yeah, there's more maintenance to do, right? More in year 6 than there is in year 2 or 3. But I also think there's something to be said for not rolling the dice and doing the maintenance from the get-go. And then hopefully, you're having less issues on the back end when the turf's reaching its, life end.
So maybe just a question regarding process. Ken and I were chatting earlier. It's for future action. Maybe just kind of a high-level summary of a recommendation. I reviewed this, Mr. Thompson, and it says recommended by the Brighton Athletic Department, 60 ounce, and then I've heard you say multiple times you recommend the 52 ounce.
Right.
So I'm just trying to.
So I'd look at the 52 ounce on the backfield of the high school in Scranton. I'd look at the 60 ounce or the woven product at the high school. So if you look underneath option 1 at that line where it says do not exceed proposed total.
Yep.
That would be my recommendation to the board, that you allow a do not exceed number, because we still got a couple things that we need to work out here in terms of actual.
Can you just at a high level summarize how you get to that 25?
Yeah.
2.5 million?
Absolutely. So in comparing everybody's numbers and comparing our direction, we came up with 2,335,847. Now, all of our projects that we've ever done here, whether we're putting cupboards in and we're putting turf in, we've always added contingency. So basically that number I added 10% contingency to. Now, 1.5% of that will get eaten up through the consortium. So it leaves you about an 8.5% contingency. And for simple math, I mean, the original number with the 10% was 2,569,432. I just made it 2,570,000 just because it's an easier number.
What do you mean that there's a percentage that gets eaten up by the consortium? What do you mean by that?
So in consortium pricing, because, it's not a bid process, the numbers, there's some play in the numbers, but it's not, you're locked in with, ceilings and floors. And whereas in a bid process, if I wanted to come in and I wanted to get Brighton area schools, half price on the woven product and just dust everybody off in terms of my competition, I could do that. There's not that, you don't have that same flexibility in the consortium. Did I explain that?
Yeah, it's the fee that the district pays as part of purchasing a product or commodity through the consortium. So and that's what I understand from their.
Paying a fee?
What to get that to purchase that product through the consortium from Sprint Turf or AstroTurf. They belong to these consortiums that you guys also belong to. You're taking advantage of their national pricing, and in doing so, there's a fee that gets paid to through that. It's not necessarily like a separate fee. It's basically once you've arrived on the product and the cost of what you're purchasing, it's that number plus the 1.5% of the Sourcewell. That's what the Sourcewell charges for that process.
Have we solicited bids independent of the consortium to see what the pricing would be outside the consortium?
Not through this process, no.
Do people ever do that?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, people do. I think the nice thing about consortium pricing is, you do have some price controls put in place. Whereas if it's an open bid process, it's up to the vendors, right? So I can go low, I can go high, I can go in the middle. They all play the game.
But isn't that what we're seeking? We're
To
seeking
some
a
extent.
vendor that provides a $200,000 discount from the others and gives us more competitive pricing from which to have an informed discussion about the trade-offs and benefits like you walked us through tonight.
Yeah, you know, I think there's pros and cons. The other thing that you got to take into account is timing. So, I mean, you know, we're March 10th right now. You know, truthfully, if we were to gone out and to the RFP or bid process or those type of things, we wouldn't have needed to have been doing this, you know, so long ago. You know,
How are they able to provide pricing through a consortium versus, like, what changes their bid process going through a consortium versus soliciting a quote independent of the consortium? How do they provide pricing through the consortium different from what they would provide if we approach them individually outside of the consortium?
Mike, you want to?
Well, at that point, I mean, that's, and I think that's kind of, you know, maybe a few meetings ago or discussions ago, and I wasn't at any of those, but typically, I mean, your board bylaws would state what you can purchase and what you can't purchase through buying consortium. Typically, I will say a local school district or neighboring school district, if they said, Mike, we want to replace our field, our board policy requires us to do a competitive bid.
Just for the spirit of time, I'm not like asking for like an overview of the policy.
Sure.
I'm saying, if you're presenting pricing today on a $700,000 project,
sure,
that the pricing per your admission a minute ago is from the consortium and is firm and fixed for 2 years, 24 months.
That's correct.
How are the parties who are providing that firm fixed pricing in the consortium able to provide that for Brighton area schools being presented tonight to us? How are they able to provide that and not be able to provide a quote independent of the consortium?
They are. We just.
I agree with you.
Yeah, they are. It's just not what they were asked to do.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. So it is
We
a
asked
time issue.
all the vendors to give us consortium pricing.
My point is, there's no big science project that needs to happen absent of the consortium to request pricing, because in order for them to give pricing, that they need inputs to create an output, and they clearly have them because they've
Correct.
given us prices.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, our office worked with John. We, you know, kind of see some of the images that you see on standing up there, the colored images. So in addition to those, we developed, you know, a little bit more of a technical drawing that gave more square footages, sizes, technical information to the bidders. So we gave them baseline parameters of what to provide pricing on, so that we were getting apples to apples comparisons with these numbers. And John and I, or more John, wasn't just scrambling, looking at trying to compare 3 bidders, 3 different products. We wanted everybody to bid competitively on the same types of things, knowing that they have maybe some differences in their products, but similarly, we've got a slip film, you know, as a baseline bid. We've got maybe a little bit of an upgraded model on the stadium field, and then we allow them to submit kind of their premier product, you know, that is more of a product only they can provide. And so we have a product for a price on that. And then we also provided, excuse me, asked them to provide pricing for the pad material, you know, gave them a baseline of what type of pad we wanted pricing on. So again, it was intended to level out the numbers so that we're looking at things at a, you know, on a consortium pricing. And I will say, I mean, I don't ever see those numbers. I don't, you know, my office, we very rarely are dealing with the consortium purchase pricing. We see a lot more in a public bid or even a private bid scenario. But there's a lot of varying factors in that. Some, you know, companies, they may be forced to use installers, you know, on a public bid scenario that might be union. So your costs go up. You know, at a co-op, you have a little bit more flexibility as a district to kind of take a little bit more of a tailored approach, kind of find a product that suits your needs and gives a little more, you know, a little more flexibility to who you want to select and kind of invest in that product with.
I guess the genesis of my question, I heard someone mention, I don't remember which one of you mentioned, that one of the manufacturers is in Coldwater, Michigan.
Correct.
That's a pad manufacturer.
Okay, the pad manufacturer.
All the carpet's done down south.
Okay.
Georgia.
So if they have national pricing as part of a consortium, is the national price that they hold to do the install in Washington State different than what it would be in the upper Midwest?
I can't answer that. I mean, you know, generally we didn't ask them for any specific requirements for installation. I mean, we asked them to follow a very traditional installation method. No union pricing, no prevailing wage pricing. I understood that that's not, a requirement for this project. So there was no requirement to price that. So we provided them the district's insurance requirements. That was all part of all of that. So, we feel very comfortable. We've got a very apples to apples comparison in the numbers. Even though, as John mentioned, some of the products might change slightly as you get into some of those more of the expensive products or more of the upper tier, higher performing products. As John mentioned, the 3D 60 and the woven product from AstroTurf and kind of the Game On product from Shaw are kind of that at the higher end of the, what we typically see, not necessarily in pricing, but performance and how they perform for the athletes. So they're definitely at the, the higher level of type of product. But as John mentioned, I would, when we assisted the district a few years ago, when we got involved with the indoor facility, about that time, we assisted the district with some track renovations. And at that time, I also evaluated all 3 turf fields, and your fields have held up really well. I mean, I would say, as an independent, I don't live in the district. I have no vested interest. We didn't design the original fields. The Scranton field has definitely seen some wear. It's kind of overworn itself. I would say the 2 high school fields have held up awesome. I mean, for the age they are, the amount of use I know this district puts on all these fields, they've held up really well. And I think that's, a testament to the type of product that was put in, back in, 2012, 13. So, which is essentially, the type of product that John's offering, to recommend here today. It's just 12 years, technology has been improved since that time. So
The other thing that I like about the AstroTurf, aside from the product, is they have an office 20 minutes away from us. So they're based out of Novi. So if you had an issue, they're going to be out there. And we've not had to call them. I think we've called them once in terms of a seam repair out on the backfield. That was really caused by our damage and me dragging the crossgo. Created the issue. I came right out, they fixed it. Life moved on. So they've got 6 employees based in the state of Michigan. So I like that. I like it for Scott and his staff. Bless you. Bless you. And that doesn't mean that, you can't get service from either of those other 2 vendors, but 20 minutes is a lot better than 3 hours or, coming from Indiana. I think there's something to be said for that as well. So that's kind of where my mind's at. I mean, like I said, there's some details we still got to work out, but I feel pretty comfortable with making that recommendation on those products and where we end up for the product, where we end up at the main high school stadium in the summer. I really think that can be TBD between, the woven product or, the root zone of the 60. But I like to actually see it.
Any other questions? I just have one question for the high school field, the stadium field. There's the 2 options of the 3D3 blend. That's the root zone, right? What's called the 3D3 blend. And for 60 ounces and the 60-ounce woven with padding. So is the difference between those 2 about 5%? It's about 5% more. Is that right?
Yeah, it's about a $44,500 ad for the woven currently.
Okay.
I think I like the backing on it. I really like the product. I'm not trying to be skeptical of it. I just hadn't seen it. I haven't put a foot on it. I don't want to stand here in front of you without having, done that. I mean, nothing against a sample, but it's not the same.
A couple of things too that John and I have already talked about is, our, responsibility to the district and to John is, it's a product that I've not used before. It's a woven product, and whether the district decides to go in that direction, we'll be here to support it as needed. But one thing that we spoke with the manufacturer about today, and John and I, spoke about earlier, is I really would like to look at some testing on that woven product. Before any type of product is rolled out into the marketplace, it goes through any sort of, strenuous testing. With synthetic turf or any textile, it's a carpet, essentially, it has to go through some sort of testing. And with turf and specifically, they go through a lot of laboratory testing, a lot of wear testing. So wear is they send machines over the turf and test plots to simulate wear, how well these fields will age over time, see how much the fibers break down over time. And so all of that is intended to get to a failure point. And you want to get to how many times can you pass that machine or throw artificial light on it before it starts to break down. So, before we would, really kind of go in that direction again, if that's the direction we want to go, I would want to, have an opportunity to look at the testing data that's available. It's all independent testing, so it's not something that would come from the manufacturer. It would be a third party. We would evaluate that with John and the district to make sure that, I would feel comfortable recommending that. Again, it's just, kind of a checks and balances for us. And if that's something that you guys would like to see as well, we're happy to do that.
And the 3D Root Zone 60 is a really great product too. It's just, it's the same as what we put down, just a little thicker, a little.
Yep, it's a step up from what you have now.
Yeah. There's many colleges that put that in, and high schools as well. We don't have to answer some of those questions tonight, but what we do have to do is get a direction, because we are a little bit on the clock. From that standpoint, this board won't get together again until April 14th. So that concerns me a little bit when we're trying to squeeze a field in here this summer. I'm just being honest. I'm not trying to, can we wait and will life go on if we don't do any fields this summer? Absolutely. And is it going to be more work to juggle and do one field? Yeah, it will, but I think the work's worth it. So we'll figure it out. But, our preference would be to get Scranton done this summer and then do the 2 high school fields, the following summer, because from a mobilization standpoint, we're going to, you just got less mobilization when you're going from one side of campus to out back.
So what's the process of moving this from future action to for action tonight?
We just need a motion to amend, to move this item for action. And then we would vote on the amendment. And then there would be then a subsequent motion to take whatever action a board member would like.
I would make a motion that we move this to future action.
Now, for action.
For action.
Okay, so we have a motion.
I will support that. Or so moved, excuse me.
So a second to amend to move this topic for action. All right, all those, we have any discussion on the amendment, on the motion to amend?
Just one quick question.
Sure.
2.57 million, Mr. Thompson's requesting, that will come out of the
8.9, yeah.
8 that's captured in our schools.
Well, that would certainly be what we would have to discuss if we, yeah, for sure.
Make sure we have that clear up.
Yeah. So the motion now is just to amend to bring into action first. So, okay, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? All right, that passes 7-0. So now that topic is for action would anyone entertain a motion?
I would make a motion to meet your do not exceed for 2.570. Mr. Thompson, I think you've brought a lot of information to the board and in our facility committee meeting where I feel comfortable with the turf options that you've presented. I'm particularly interested in getting a pad underneath the turf for our kids that play on the stadium fields. And so I don't see a reason why we can't move forward with it. That would be my motion.
All right. So we have a motion by Ms. Tierney, supported by Ms. Marks. Any discussion?
So the one question I have is, this 2.57 million, this is for all 3 fields, but we're not really necessarily looking at replacing all 3 fields this summer. Is that-
Not this summer. We do Scranton this summer. We do the 2 high school fields in the summer of 26.
And then does that freeze, you're saying we do freeze the prices then with this?
They're going to hold,
Oh, they'll
all
hold.
3 companies would hold their pricing.
So with us committing to this, we've got the prices held, even though it's not
Correct.
going to happen.
You're locked in for this summer's construction and next summer's construction.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Anyone else? And just so I'm clear, if this were to be approved at the do not exceed number, that number is the 2.3 million that you mentioned earlier, and that covers the 60-ounce woven with padding for the stadium,
Yeah.
and then the 52.
At the other 2 fields.
Okay.
That's
So-
how I built it. And then I just added 10% on because we always typically add a contingency on. I mean, I see us coming in under this, but at the same time, I don't want to, come back to you and go, oh, hey, guess what? We had an issue. We gotta do this.
And so, as I understand, you're going to try to see if there's a testing that's been done on the woven material before ultimately the decision is made.
Yeah, I
Is that
wanna see
readily
it.
available already, or is that something that's in the works, the test results?
Yeah.
University of Tennessee.
Yeah, so manufacturer's indicated, he's told us that yes, the testing's available, third-party testing is available. I haven't seen it. So I'm kind of going on his word right now. Generally, they wouldn't make that statement if the information wasn't there. So it's a matter of a phone call for us to evaluate that testing data. One thing too that, the manufacturer and most turf manufacturers do contribute to, but the University of Tennessee, they run probably the largest synthetic turf kind of R&D program in the country. Most turf companies will send their turf to them and they run these test plots. And so it's good to hear. I know the gentleman down there, John Sorokin, he's a Michigan State graduate, but he runs their program down there. And we can get that information directly from him. I mean, that is real of information as you can get. John's a trusted resource in the industry, and I feel very confident we can get that information. I don't get the sense that this is anything that they're hiding from us or anything like that. It's just the product is fairly new, and so the information has just not made its way to the marketplace yet. The woven product as a whole is fairly new to the market. It's probably within the last 4 to 5 years, it's really kind of exploded. It's tremendous, but there's just not a lot of, I can't say go to Howell High School and go look at their field. We can go look at any field here within 20 miles and find pretty much all of these products except for the woven.
And 2 points to, that 52 was the one that we put in 13 years ago, right?
Yes.
And that was not anywhere to be, you went on a whim, correct?
We did. There wasn't a field in Michigan with the 52 at the
Yeah.
time we did that. But I felt comfortable. I liked the science behind it. We were able to, get on some stuff and look at it. And, I think in terms of the track record, it's borne out well. And, so I have confidence, but I don't want to have misplaced confidence. I want to get the testing data on the woven. I want to put feet on a field. You know what I mean? I just, and if we end up with the 60 out there, I'm going to feel really good about that for our kids too. So we got some time to be able to figure that out.
Well, my suggestion would be that once you get the feedback and then you're debating whether to pull the trigger on the woven versus the root zone, is maybe to have a follow-up meeting with the facilities committee where it can be discussed and, get your feedback. I mean, obviously we've already approved on the do not to exceed, but I think it would be helpful just to have a further dialogue at the facilities committee meeting. And then if we do end up going with the woven and they want to do more testing on our facility, tell them we'll give them consortium pricing to use our facility for testing.
I think we,
Up with our own formula.
Exactly.
yeah, we haven't approved it yet, right? We just have had our discussion. So
Yeah,
now
yeah,
we
no.
need
We
to-
haven't approved
Right, yeah, we
Yeah,
haven't,
okay.
right, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yep.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thompson?
Yes. Fired up? That just means more work. Andy. That's okay. Thanks for the good work. It's gonna be good work for our kids. It's gonna be good work for our community. So I'm happy to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
All right, that moves us now back into for future action, item B, Hawkins Playground Equipment. Dr. Alwa.
Yes, we briefly talked about this at the last meeting. This is future action. We talked about that the Hawkins PTO had raised some money, do a sharing with the Hawkins PTO on this. There are 3 quotes in this from Midstate that Scott can talk about here. The real difference has to do with the rubber flooring. Scott, you want to talk about that?
Option 1 is 109,520. That's the play area with wood chips, all wood chips. Option 2 is 146,392. That's their hybrid, but it's not half rubber and half wood chips. The way he's done it is to make rubber pass through the playground so that the kids in wheelchairs could access all the equipment through the pass. And then option 3 is 187,574, and that's all rubber. So.
Any questions?
Someone who spent way too many hours on children's playground sets, wood chips, horrible.
Horrible.
And the new rubber matting they have, amazing. So I would personally support providing the rubber matting in its entirety and just get away from all those little, even the rubber ones, they just get all over the yard. They get in the parking lots. They're just a mess. So.
My opinion, if we put the pass in, the wood chips are gonna be all over the pass. But it's just my thoughts.
I have a question just about the funding. I understand this would be shared with the PTO. Is there a percentage, or is this what the district is being requested to pay for?
So the PTO has a certain amount of money that they have set aside, and that's all that they have. And then we would pick up anything beyond that. Our ask, they did this without, I believe the PTO, when they did this with wood chips. And we, because they have all these students with wheelchairs through the district, and for all the reasons that you talked about, we asked to look at the rubber flooring to be able to present that to the board, saying this rubber really is a direction we need to go for accessibility for students. Plus, the wood chips is not a great model, but that's a choice for the board. So we'd probably recommend, I know that I would recommend either doing the hybrid or do the full thing, so that it's done right with the right flooring and everything like that for the students. They can access everything, but that added cost goes to the district, not to the PTO. The difference.
Is what we're requesting the district to pay for.
Right.
I'm a little, yeah.
Clarification, I agree with you. The total that you just referenced, which was it 180 something?
It's 187,
187, that number.
That's the
I
total.
believe the question is the 180, is the total cost 187 plus the amount that the PTO is committing?
No.
Or less?
Less.
Okay, and then do we know what the PTO amount is roughly?
Yeah, it initially was 30, but they added some additional because of the flooring. I'm not 100% sure. I don't
30
want to miss.
something in the neighborhood
I
of
would
30.
assume that, yes.
At least 30.
Yep,
So the ask of us is roughly 150 plus?
yes.
They're all rubber.
So we'd like to bring you back an option. To the board have a preference for us on which one? These would be the 3.
So one of the things this is going to do by adding the rubber will be make it more accessible. And it looks like some of the other equipment then is accessible. Is that the additional thing that's happening with this?
Yeah, and I think that's a direction we need to go.
Absolutely.
Really start thinking about, so.
Okay, thank you.
We can bring back some drawings with, if you want to go all rubber, we'll bring back some drawings with the play area and all the rubber shown on it.
Those options back and the board can decide
Yeah.
next month?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, that moves us to item C, transportation fuel tank. Mr. Jacobs.
So I had a recent inspection from the state of Michigan. Our gas pumps, tanks had 4 violations. They're giving us till 6/12/25 to get them either repaired or replaced. I talked to them a little bit. I said, well, if we were to go, we were looking at above ground tanks at one time, and we still are. We would do that over the summertime, and he was good with that as long as we were starting and proceeding on that. I did get a price for $110,000 to repair our tanks, but what's there? Oscar Larson told us that the monitor was no longer available that we have now. And so they said they couldn't repair that part of it. Corrigan came out, looked at it. They said, well, we can put a brand new monitoring system in. We just cut the asphalt concrete up and run it inside. And that's the $110,000 to fix. But with that being said, they didn't recommend it because the tanks are 32 years old. They're warranted for 30 years, so they're out of warranty. But like he said, if your tanks fail in 20 years, they're going to come out and drop new tanks off, and then you got to figure out how to put them in the ground. So our tanks are 32 years old, so they suggested we go with the above ground tanks. The state inspector said that would probably be a wise idea. And that's kind of where we're at now. I'm just looking for some direction. If we go with the above ground tanks, then we'll put together an RFP and go out for bid and have pricing back to you on the next board meeting. I did talk to a couple vendors. They both said they could get the tanks in time for summer. If we gave them an answer April 14th or a little bit after, they said the tanks are readily available. We could get them in time. So if we go that route, if we go do the repair, we could start as soon as school's out.
Does the facilities committee have a recommendation?
Facilities committee recommends the above ground. It's got, for 2 reasons. Accessibility, and if it leaks, you see it before it's a problem.
Yeah,
We still have though, then the tanks in the ground, if we were to go that route, that would have to be removed.
Correct.
Or filled. It is.
Yeah, they want them removed now. You got up to 1 year to get them removed.
So that's not an option.
Yeah, they don't want them filled in case if there was any leakage.
Right.
That they want to know there's no, because when you take the tanks out, you got to check for contamination, that there was no leakage. So above ground tanks, you don't run that risk anymore. If it leaks, you see it leak into a spill bucket. Yeah. Right now, if our tanks leak, I mean, we could have ground contamination. We got that lake back there. It could be a lot of money.
So then the removal of the old tanks is in addition to the $400,000 to $500,000?
No, that's part of it.
That's included in that?
That's included in it.
Great, thank you.
So would your,
If there's any contamination that they find, that would be above it, but
so
the tanks
Scott,
were-
so the RFP is going to be for both the new above ground tank and the removal. You're going to have the same, is it the same contractor? Or
Yeah,
you're going to
yep,
two different RFPs?
Same person would do it all.
Okay.
Yep.
So would the board like us to go out for RFP for the new, or if that's the direction, then that's what we'll do?
Yep.
Okay, great. All set.
Okay. All right, that moves us to item D, staffing. Mr. Anastasov, or who's going to tackle this one?
So we have the staffing on the list today for future action because at this point, we are going through, meeting with all the principals, discussing what the future staffing for the 25-26 school year will be. And at this point, as we're making some of those determinations and looking at our projected students and deciding what staffing FTE that we actually need at each building, we wanted to put this on the agenda because at the next meeting, we anticipate bringing forward potential recommendations or discussions for the board about how to handle some of our future staffing if certain decisions need to be made for that. So they're not secured yet because we're still in kind of the analysis stage, but we do want this year to be able to bring items forward and have a more open discussion with the board about how we handle some of those future staffing needs if any reduction was to occur or even if additional was needed.
Any questions? No? All right. Moves us to item E, board policy. Mr. Anastasov, still you?
Yeah, with the, it started out, then the committee can go into, so our committee met a couple weeks ago. I don't have the date, so it's been a couple weeks. Okay, so we met and we were able to talk about a few of the policies. We are looking at least one, moving it forward at the next meeting regarding artificial intelligence and its use there. It's important, obviously, we're looking to move that one forward to maintain within our timeline, because our timeline at this point, we're hoping to get a board policy secured in April so we can have further conversation with our staff in May about what that looks like from a staffing perspective, what that looks like from a student perspective. So the policy at this point is a policy that is a brand new one that is actually recommended by Troon, and the policy committee is recommending it as written. And it is fairly general in nature, but does cover the areas that we need to have covered from a policy perspective before we move forward and talking about specifics of what we're using, like I said, as a school district or as a student or a staff member.
And didn't we also discuss that one of the products actually self-regulates itself? It doesn't allow you to do certain things.
Because that is one of the parts is obviously ensuring that we have a secure platform that we use. Because even though there are amazing products out there and ChatGPT and the OpenAI and some of those type of items, there is security concerns involved in those and the ability to access that information. So there are platforms out there such as School AI and those that are a closed platform and only access. Now, the downside I know sometimes of them is the information they search is more restricted. So they may be less, they go over less material than the others, but it offers a more secure opportunity. So that will be something that after we get the policies in place, the district will work with staff moving forward to choose what option do we move forward with. So this is the first of those stepping stones. Well, I shouldn't say the first. Liz's team and everybody's been working all year to actually with staff training and everything in AI. So the staff has seen
This is the way
a lot
the
so far.
staff is using it, not the way students are using it yet. That's something later. So in terms of using it in curriculum for teaching will be something different. This is the way staff would use it in communication.
Yeah, and actually
It does.
Yeah, and the policy it will end up covering the general parts of both of that. But right now, the discussion has been staff use at this point, but we do want to start heading into what does that look like use from the student end. But it's been so far, I think, all staff, I think at this point, staff usage.
Jake, can I just ask a quick question? Specific to it being for staff, what is the real need for creating a policy? I mean, I would think as a district, we have guidelines on what happens in the cloud or in the internet. Like, it just a little bit feels like it becomes more restrictive than it becomes us encouraging teachers to use artificial intelligence. To me, we should be leading, not just Livingston County, not just the state, we should be leading the nation in the use of and the adoption of artificial intelligence. It's an incredible tool. It's an incredible technology. And I hope that in the spirit of trying to provide guidance to staff, it doesn't become a restriction on those who truly are looking to embrace and use it, because it is an incredibly powerful tool. And I hope our teachers and our students are embracing it and using it to the fullest extent possible.
I will say from somebody on the policy committee, I thought it was important that we have a baseline policy because they could use it in any number of ways in this at least holds them accountable to make sure the stuff they're getting from it is accurate. It's not inappropriate. It doesn't give them something that doesn't abide by our appropriate use guidelines. So maybe there was some, thing that is not appropriate for kids to have, but because they asked AI to generate a letter about, I don't know, Martin Luther King, it might come up with something inappropriate. It's basically telling the teacher, you need to verify, you need to check, you need to read. You can't just assume that these are.
And to your point, I mean, the appropriate use guidance, does that not, I guess my question was, is that not covered today in the appropriate use guidelines? Like, would a teacher not be compelled to do that absent of this policy, whether they're using artificial intelligence or the internet? I don't know.
I felt there was some gaps.
Okay.
This is a recommendation from legal counsel. And I think one of the big parts of acceptable use is emphasizing that there's rules like FERPA and IDEA and Children's Internet Protection Act that are essential, that we have to follow no matter what. So this is just a guardrail. If you read through it, it's pretty general. I don't see this as being restrictive to staff in the use of AI.
I would just like to add to that. So first of all, we are having staff use it and they're using it a lot. So I'm actually excited to see them kind of leading this based on our training. They've been doing it. We've also been talking about uses in your classroom. But I think one of the important parts here is upload, what was said, what are you uploading into it? So if I'm uploading student names and data and that's not a secure site, that's a concern, right? So being careful of what we're using the AI for. So that's I see, when I read this, I read it more in those type of guidelines that we're not uploading student names and data things, because it is collecting, on the back end, right? They are collecting data and things like that. So it's just a protection, I think, for our students. Now, as for lesson planning and stuff, go for it. Have a field day. Do what's best for students. Find ways to generate an email that sounds more for sure. And they should be leading that and showing how we use it as a tool. But I think there's a caution about sometimes what we're uploading, even the best of intentions might not be ideal.
Okay. Anything else further? Okay, that moves us to item F, Maltby Wall restoration.
So the wall restoration is, we got a section of wall in our corridor downstairs at Maltby that's getting moisture in it. Every year the paint flakes off the wall, we patch it, we repaint it. We had a company come out and look at it, and they put together an RFP for us. We have that. We're tearing the drywall, metal furring off the wall. We're waterproofing it from floor to ceiling. And then we're putting a metal stud wall back up, or hat track on the wall back up with Durarock on it. And then they're going to install that 1/2-inch brick. So it'll be a brick veneer on the wall, which will match the other side of the corridor. That is out for bid right now. There's a walkthrough on Friday, and the bids are due April 1st. So we'll have numbers on what that would cost when we come back on the 14th.
I'd like to add, this is a unique situation where that wall is not accessible unless you demo it. It's buried wall inside with the exterior.
Yeah, so you have 60 foot of classrooms that go to the north from imagine this corridor here, there's 60 foot of classroom, at least maybe 80 foot to the north, and there's probably 100 feet to the south. So there's no way to get to the outside of the wall. That's why we're looking at trying to do something from the inside.
That's another way of saying it's not going to be cheap, just so you know.
So we'll have some numbers and then we can decide what we want to do.
Any questions? No?
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask. I had one question. When you mentioned the RFP and, the remediation, if God forbid you open up that wall and you find mold or something of that nature, how does that change that RFP? Is there something built into that?
That would all be cleaned up. It would all be
It would be
removed.
remediated.
It would be removed and
Okay.
gone away.
So it wouldn't be an additional cost or something you'd have to
No.
go for? Okay. Thank you.
All right. that moves us to item G, Beck restrooms. Mr. Jacobs.
So the Beck restrooms, we have 4 left here to do. You guys probably use the ones at the bottom of the stairs, so you know what they look like. The 2 that we did down in the east wing, that was roughly, the alternate from Corrigan was 150,400 and some dollars. There was a $7,000 change order to change all the old galvanized pipe, which was rusting away in the walls, to copper pipe. That being said, they were on site already doing the other project, so there was no GC cost. They had superintendent and GC already covered in the project, so it was just a change order to do the bathrooms. They are here, they should be finished with their project, other than the landscape outside, by the end of this week, is what they're telling me. They should be 100% done. So we can either go with it. I asked them for pricing because it was 2 years later since they did the last one. They're about $85,000 a bathroom, which is $340,000 for the 4 bathrooms we have left. To gut them, ceramic tile, paint, new toilet fixtures, new bathroom partitions, new ceiling. But there would also be the cost of Lindout to do drawings. There's probably $1,000 in there for a permit, a new permit. So either we go with a change order to Corrigan and keep them working, or we go out for bid.
We can we can extend the permit also, but I don't think, it's exactly the same work, we might be able to.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that.
That's
I
a
was told
little bit of
I was
savings.
told they needed a new permit, so
And we need drawings.
they need Lindout to give drawings, yeah.
Lindout can get it for us.
So we can submit them to the state. I think Jason told, and I could be wrong on this, but I think Jason said it would be right around 2,500 for the drawings.
I personally, I love the idea of bidding it out, but we've got a crew here that has done it already. 2 bathrooms, they know what to expect. I like that. It just gives me a comfortable feeling.
80,000 to do the bathroom. That's then facilities.
Oh.
So they were
I
at,
could see it going as high as 120 sometimes in a bathroom like that.
For when they did the bathrooms they've already done, was that bid? I can't remember.
well, it was an alternate that we accepted. It was
But
150.
we only got the bid from them as an alternate.
No, we got alternates from everybody.
And do you recall where they fell on
They
that
were,
alternate?
I believe there was one like 146, and then there was one that was like 190.
So they were the cheapest of the
No,
alternates?
they were like in the middle.
Oh, I think you said,
One
I
was
was thinking of
146,
85
yeah.
per, okay.
Yeah. So they were about roughly 75,000 in bathroom for those 2 that they did.
But if we bid it, we would then add general GC costs and.
Well, they're going to add that anyways. 'cause
Pardon me?
They're going to add GC costs. So on top of that, 85,000 would be close to covering their GC cost.
Are we required to do that?
Well, not if we do a change order. That's
Right, that's what
you
I'm
can
saying.
do that all the. They do that
There's
all
gonna
the
be
time.
more costs if you go with another, just a new contractor for those, beyond the
Yeah.
base bid price.
I can't answer that. I mean, you could get lower pricing, you could get higher pricing.
Right, now I understand, but whatever the
Yeah.
base bid, they're gonna have those additional costs that if you
Right, yeah.
extend core
Yeah,
again,
if
you're
somebody
not.
else were to come in, they're gonna have the drawings, the GC.
Right.
And that's kind of what we've got now. We got to pay for that now because Corrigan's finishing up with their job. So they're going to be extending their work, so.
What was the $7,000 change?
That was for all the galvanized piping that had to be
That's right,
tore
that's
out. The block had to be opened up and the galvanized piping because it was all rusting away. Kind of like our lintels.
So if we went out for bid, we have that knowledge now that that's probably to be expected and to probably
Probably.
put an alternate for it.
What was the reason why it wasn't on the original?
Just never got asked to do it. It was just that wing down there.
Can you
I
remind
think the
me-
original plan was that the kids were going to come back down that way, so.
Can you remind me who did the Hilton bathrooms?
That was Gordon.
It was? Okay.
Well, and I would just add, most of that work, it was taken out of contingency dollars, and we ran out of, we just didn't have enough contingency dollars left to go. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so if we wanted to bid it out, we could, if we're gonna do it, sound like we're gonna do it, then we'd need to get Lindau to get us drawings. And then we could do an RFP and put the drawings out and we'd have it bid out.
Well, it sounds like we're gonna need Linda to do the drawings
Either
under
way.
either scenario.
Either way. So it's just whether we want to just keep the job moving or just wait a little bit and bid it out and hopefully we get better pricing.
If I could, what is it that we're moving into this location this is the floors?
We are, I'm probably not ready to do a public announcement on that just at this moment. So we're getting close though. Thank you. Sorry, I don't mean to punt.
No, that's fine.
I want to be
That's fine.
respectful of the people that are in the conversation.
Yep, you're right.
Okay.
Thoughts from others?
I guess I feel like if it's not going to be too big of a delay, we should get the bids. It's been a long time, so to then not have we're just going to go with this company, that's my personal feeling. I don't know how everyone else feels. I could probably be convinced to go the other way too, but we have to get the drawings and then that's a little bit of time anyway, but without doing that, we just don't know that we're getting the best dollar value for the work. So
Okay.
that's my opinion.
I will get with Lindau then and have them start drawings.
Well, yeah, I personally, I think we should move forward with having Lynn do the drawings
Yeah,
anyway,
for
no matter
sure.
what.
I agree.
And, yeah, and then get, I'm okay getting the bids.
Yeah, we can get that out as soon as we can and
Okay. Okay. All right, that moves us to item H, part-time communications and marketing director. Dr. Outlaw?
Okay, this is something that I have floated to the board a few times over the years. The demands in the area of communication, marketing, website, the communication strategies that we use to reach out to engage families. We do this by committee, and I think it is time, our team feels that it's time, and I've run it by, some other folks here, that it is time to bring in somebody who has a specific skill set in this area around communications and marketing. I have shared a draft of a job posting, looking at part-time. It could be flexible based on the skill set. There are some people that are more technical, some that are more communications, journalism type. There's different things. I think we would want to find somebody that would be the right fit, that would understand the Brighton area schools. But I think that there's huge benefits to doing something like this. I think that halftime is all that would be needed for a position like this for us. But what you'll find is most districts our size do have communications staff. And so this is a requesting this on behalf of administration. We'd like you to consider this. If this is something that the board is open to, I'd love to be able to come back next month and have you take an official stance on this. So what are your thoughts? What are your questions?
I feel like, I've been shocked for a number of years that we don't have a dedicated communications person. I know it says communications and marketing specialist. I feel like it's definitely more communication. Some people get a little nervous about marketing, like what are we marketing? And, does school district money need to be spent on marketing? In my view, it's definitely more about communicating with the constituents in our district and also the community members of our district, not so much marketing outside of our district. Is that do I have that correct?
Correct. That's, to me, a big piece is streamlining all of the communications. Let's say, for example, you have multiple kids, and who is the person that is vetting our systems, that it's efficient, that people are trained appropriately, that they're looking through newsletters, that they're mining for good stories about students and things. And we're doing a lot of this by committee right now. We could benefit by having somebody who's an expert in this area. That's why we're requesting this. But yes, requesting locally and interested families as well.
I recall, and I don't remember the time frame when we discussed this, Dr. Outlaw, Matt Mills, like was behind your design. What does he do for the district? 'Cause I think I've seen in some of the check runs that there's references to, $2,000 payments. What's different about this versus what Mr. Mills is doing?
So obviously I'm making an announcement here, but with this request, we would not continue with Behind Your Design. Behind Your Design does marketing materials, does social media, and they do a variety of things for different districts. As we look at the cost of this, we would say that $24,000 a year that we put towards that Behind Your Design, that we would put it into this position and have somebody that would be local. They've been great. They have a lot of excellent things, but I think it's time for us to have our own person that really understands this district and is really focused in here. They're great, but they do a variety of districts. We would look at not continuing if we went this way.
And then maybe just in the spirit of sharing thoughts with, my own thoughts with the board as we prepare to discuss this in the future. I feel that Brighton as a whole, I look at our teachers, like the presentations that we had not only tonight, but even in prior board meetings. The student engagement in our district is just incredible. The teacher involvement in all the different student groups and organizations is incredible. You send out a newsletter on a very regular basis with a lot of really good content. For those of us on the board and in the community that have students in the district, I'm overwhelmed with inbound communication from all the stakeholders, from athletics to, the teachers and the activities and classes, student groups. I just, I think of what we heard this evening from the folks that came in from Horning and referenced the peer-to-peer, how they're dependent on grant money. I don't know how many of you caught that, but there was a reference to like 3 or 4 bullets, $800 grant, $1,200 grant, $900 grant. And then there was also some reference to, it was the Mr. Steiner, the basketball coach, and Colleen had referenced how there's a lot of things that he's paying for out of his own pocket. That's something that I heard. And so I guess from my perspective, I'm always hesitant when I view this as being, we're adding overhead to administration versus taking those dollars and putting those dollars into the hands of teachers or into the hands of folks like Mr. Steiner who are truly working with students on a day-to-day basis. And so I feel that, while we can probably justify a good use for this particular role or individual who would fulfill this role, I would like to see us take those dollars and devote those dollars to the types of activities that we learned about this evening. Again, that's just me trying to share my feedback with the board.
Mr. Stahl? I don't disagree with either side, Ms. Arbain or Mr. Storm. I agree both of those are important. Just to piggyback on yours, I do like the idea of somebody in this position maybe putting stuff out there about our school district. And the reason for it is it's changed. I mean, when we moved here, we checked what were the scores. We looked that up on the state. We went, wow, these guys are doing a great job. They're ranked this, so we came here. What they don't tell you is the community and the passion and the children and what they're all about. So I would like that to get out there for future parents that want to come here. We're a go-to district, in my opinion. You mentioned Brighton, they're like, oh, we're from Brighton. I want to keep that going. So I would like to see this do a little bit of that. It doesn't have, not to the point that we're, divulging who our children are or any of that kind of thing, but just putting out what we're doing, the kind of things in school. I think it would be helpful that way. And I think we should fund the things that you just mentioned, that we just talked about. But I also think this helps us better get that out, that information out. Oh, and by the way, we're funding it now. I don't think this 20-some thousand or whatever it might amount to, probably all in, it's what, 50, 60,000 a year? I'm just guessing. I think it's got benefits both directions. Just my thoughts.
The only thing I'll say is on the marketing side, and I keep a little stash of these at my house, but I don't want to see us becoming a district that's sending out postcards to the people in Huron Valley schools saying, come to Brighton. I don't want that type of marketing. If we want to talk about the great things we're doing in our community, that's great. I don't want to be sending out marketing pieces into Ann Arbor or, Novi.
Yeah, that wasn't my intent at all. It was just a presence out there that when I'm searching schools, when I'm a young couple with kids, all of a sudden it pops up and tells a story about our school. That's what I'm looking for.
And we can do, I do think we should be doing that and sharing it on social media, because then the parents share it and we don't even have to spend dollars.
That's true.
To share it out there. We just have to produce it. And then it gets shared, but I don't want to be marketing outside of our district.
I agree.
And just a couple of things. I completely agree, Andy, with your comment about, supporting those programs. I don't view the support for those programs and supporting bringing on somebody in this capacity as being mutually exclusive. I think we certainly can do both. So that was number one. Number two is I believe one of the qualifications on this draft, qualifications experience, is number 7. Experience with website design is preferred but not required. I think it should be changed to say something to the effect of experience with use of website as a means of communication is very valid.
Website management.
Right, exactly. Because I think there's an opportunity for us as a district to be able to better communicate to everyone by our website content, right? It's easier to navigate, to be able to find information. I mean, I think that's really, and it might be difficult to thread the needle of someone that,
I like where you're going with this, Roger. It
But-
sounds like IT revolution.
But, I think that is, that's certainly something, as we sort of define the scope of what our expectations are and the background, I think that's really important. If there's people that have that experience that can, really bring that value to the table, I think that'd be very valuable. So anyway.
I would like to reiterate, I think if this position is improved, that all of that there's kind of a review over what those qualifications are and that they have to be very technically savvy. I think that needs to be a required function of the role, able to take and upload, video, comfort with social media platforms, as well as website management, not necessarily design, but making sure we have a calendar that's accessible, perhaps working on mobilizing or making our website optimal for mobile use, which is very challenging to look at things.
That's a whole different experience.
Right, but if we're going to be putting things on there and we're sending families to a website, which I think is natural, we want to make it valuable. And for me personally, we need to have summarized curriculum on there for families that are going to the district and prospective families. If we're sending more and more families to that website for information, as somebody that would be bringing my kids into the district, I would want to know what they're learning. So those are my comments.
Okay.
Just say is if this was approved next month, I think that we want to be very selective and we don't want to hire just for the sake of hiring. So I think it's really important to have the perfect fit. I think if we find the perfect fit, then great, let's move forward. If we don't, let's keep looking, let's take our time. So that's just one other thought on that. So.
Can I just ask one more question? Would this position report to you or what would that look like? Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
All right. Anything further on this topic? All right. That concludes the for future action portion of our agenda. Moves us into board committee chair reports, committee recognition. Anyone want to, I know we've touched upon some of the various aspects of the committees tonight.
Academic committee met. Now I'm realizing it was February 17th, so it was a while ago, but it was after the last meeting. So the biggest thing we talked about was Dr. Mosier shared the K-6 evaluation for the ELA curriculum process. And that was really interesting, hearing what was done. It was nice to hear Ms. Price talk about the Haggerty writing method, which she was talking about the first graders writing. So that was kind of nice to connect that to what we were talking about. So just with everything, I think it's interesting to see the work that she has put in terms of just revising all the curriculum, that there's just a process in place so that everything's being evaluated in a manner that's really productive. One of the things we talked about was maybe in the May meeting, talking about the ELA curriculum at a board meeting, presenting it to the board meeting. Our next meeting is at the end of this month, March 31st. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Policy, I'll do the policy. We met the 27th. We heard about the AI policy that we move forward. We also discussed a couple other policies and administrative guidelines, 3108, which is related to service animals, and 5407, which is related to instructional materials. We have some additional discussion that we'll be having at our next meeting. On those, I do think we'll probably be ready to move something forward perhaps after that April 14th meeting. Our next meeting is April 14th at 5:30.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
One more. Drew Cabby, the athletic trainer. He was the Bulldog winner, extraordinary Bulldog winner. I was unable to make it that day, but I have personal experience from this gentleman. I think a few of us might because of sports related with accidents with our children. But he was very instrumental in getting, when Nate had his injury, he was very instrumental in telling us exactly where to go and where to go with that. He actually was the first person to diagnose it correctly, and he went above and beyond and spent a lot of time on the phone with that weekend with my wife to make sure that we knew what our options were and give us all of his connections. And he's an extraordinary young man, and he was truly worthy of that, and probably maybe a little castle somewhere with a crown. But I thought my personal experience has been every bit of what this says about him, and I just wanted to mention that.
Just one quick comment. Mr. Evans is in the back of the room. He and Dr. Outlaw came in on a snow day. We hosted some visitors at the high school and did a complete walkthrough. And I thought it was so neat when I drove over there that morning. The whole city was shut down. The school was shut down. The roads were almost impassable early morning. And Mr. Evans and Dr. Outlaw both showed up for a pre-scheduled walk through the high school. So thank you both for that. That was really nice you guys to do that.
All right. Anything further? Okay. That concludes all items on our agenda this evening. Our next meeting is Monday, April 14th at 7 o'clock. This meeting is adjourned, and thank you for being here this evening.